Chapter 412. Jujio Ichiro didn't dare to stay here any longer. He bowed 90 degrees to Jiang Xiu for half a minute, then hurriedly left the Nangong family and ran away with his tail between his legs. Jiang Xiu said, "Old Master Nangong, what are you going to do?" Nangong Mu didn't dare to say no. He smiled and said, "Of course I'll listen to Mr. Zhang's arrangements." However, the helplessness under his smile was also full of bitterness. The Nangong family had invested a lot of human resources in the joint project with the Jujio family. They even let their most outstanding granddaughter marry someone else. It was obvious that they had put in a lot of effort. "We didn't know that Mr. Jiang was coming. The Nangong family didn't go out to welcome you. Please forgive us. Quickly prepare a banquet." Jiang Xiu waved his hand and said, "I've eaten. Since the matter is over, I'll leave first. I won't disturb you." He wasn't in the mood to deal with this group of people. Well, Nangong Mu certainly didn't want to let Jiang Xiu leave just like that. He had another plan in mind. When the Jiang family was still alive, Jiang Xiu and Nangong Ko had a marriage contract. Of course, since the Jiang family was no longer alive, Jiang Xiu certainly wouldn't acknowledge this marriage contract. Moreover, the Jiang family and Jiang Xiu didn't get along, so mentioning this marriage contract would only have the opposite effect. However, Jiang Xiu and Nangong Ko had a secret rendezvous in a secluded place for 4 or 5 hours. Jujio Ichiro also said that after the two of them were alone in the room, the sheets were a mess. A man and a woman alone, dry wood and blazing fire. Nangong Mu knew that they were pure, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Since it was such a relationship, it could be developed. He also knew about Jiang Xiu's divorce. "Well, Ko, please see Mr. Jiang off." When Nangong Ko walked with Jiang Xiu to the gate, Jiang Xiu noticed that the tears on her pretty face had dried up, but her eyes were still red. This was the first time that he had seen Nangong Ko cry, and she didn't look as pure and innocent as before. Instead, she looked quite pitiful. "What's wrong? Are you moved to tears? You're the one who's crying. I just blew sand into my eyes." Ko was still upset, mainly because of her family's reaction. She felt wronged and disappointed. Even Jiang Xiu's support couldn't make her feel better. "If you want to cry, then cry. I've cried before too. Are you annoying or not? I already said that sand got into my eyes. Who is as shameless as you?" She rolled her eyes at him coquettishly and disdained Jiang Xiu. "You shouldn't hurt me like this." "Well, I think you owe me a thank you." Jiang Xiu wasn't a stupid person. On the contrary, he had experienced more than 3,000 years of life, so he was very insightful. What had happened today was too coincidental. Nangong Ko had asked him out, but they were caught red-handed. Now things had become like this, so Nangong Ko might have used him to get rid of the Jujio family. "What's there to thank me for? Do you want me to marry that pervert?" Jiang Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, when he saw Nangong Ko's confident expression, he wasn't unhappy at all. Instead, he felt a little comfortable. The rich families of our nation are not bad either. Nangong Ko had realized a long time ago that her marriage would be a political marriage. All rich and powerful families were like this, and her cousins were also like this. She didn't want to resist, but she couldn't stand marrying her to our nation. In her mind, our nation's men were all perverts. However, the main reason was that the Jujio family was more powerful than the Nangong family. After she got married, her family wouldn't be able to help her at all if she was wronged. She was afraid of her future life, so she was very afraid of this marriage. However, she couldn't resist it, and the Nangong family didn't give her the chance to resist. She had been looking forward to Jiang Xiu's return, and as soon as he came back, she contacted Cheng Lingran. However, she didn't manage to persuade Jiang Xiu, and Jiang Xiu came to the imperial capital by himself, so she came up with this idea on the spur of the moment. However, the biggest surprise was the reaction of the Nangong family. Nangong Mu even said that she was a disgrace to the family. Nangong Ko was really sad, and she was still feeling sad at this moment. "Then why don't you ask me to marry him again? It's not like you can't do it." Nangong Ko said angrily. "Fairy Nation is too troublesome." "Shameless." Nangong Ko gritted her teeth. She was already so sad, and he still said such words. When are you going back to Jiangnan? Jiang Xiu said. I was going to leave tomorrow, but I'm staying to accompany you for a few days. Get lost. Nangong Ko-er's heart softened when she heard Jiang Xiu's words. She changed the topic and said, Jiang Xiu, I'm going to get married in the future, so it's better if you don't tell anyone about our relationship. Otherwise, it'll cause trouble. If he said that this girl was Mr. Jiang's, who in the Hua nation would dare to marry her? It's about your reputation. Do you think I'm that stupid? Nangong Ko-er said. It's hard to say whether you're stupid or not. Anyway, you're not that smart. You're just dumb, but your face is passable. Hurry up and leave. At this moment, the Nangong family was in an uproar. Oh my God, this girl is really something. Her adulterer is Jiang Luoxia. The Nangong family, who had been ashamed of Nangong Ko-er's secret rendezvous with another man, were now shocked. This person was really good at cheating. With Jiang Luoxia's support, our Nangong family will definitely prosper. This girl is really something. I really didn't expect her to be so capable. Nangong Mu, who had been red in the face just now had a smile on his face. Compared with the Juzhou family, Jiang Luoxia was definitely better. Not to mention the Juzhou family's ranking on the divine list, the Juzhou family was an outsider, and their future was even more unpredictable. However, Jiang Luoxia's influence in the Hua nation was far-reaching. It could be said that the whole Jiangnan was under his control. He was extremely rich and powerful. Ko-er, you're back. Seeing Nangong Ko-er come back, the whole family gathered around her. Some of her younger cousins immediately went up to her and said, Wow, Sister Ko-er, Jiang Luoxia is so handsome. He's like a god. If he said something to me, I would definitely pass out because of excitement. Nangong Ko-er's smile was also a little withered. She was still unhappy about what had just happened. Ko-er, why didn't you tell us earlier that you were going on a date with Mr. Jiang? Nangong Liang, who was next to her, said. If he had known, he would never have blamed Nangong Ko-er. Is there a difference? Of course there is a difference. Ko-er, Mr. Jiang doesn't want you to marry into the Juzhou family. Does he want to marry you? It seems that he's single now, Nangong Liang asked. Nangong Ko-er said, Alas, we're just ordinary friends. Well, if Nangong Ko-er insisted on saying this, they really couldn't do anything about it. And Mr. Jiang asked me to tell you that we're not friends. He doesn't want others to know that we're friends. I'm a little tired. I'm going back to have a rest. Nangong Ko-er didn't know whether Jiang Xiu would marry her if she asked him to marry her. Maybe he would, but maybe he wouldn't. Even if Jiang Xiu was willing to marry her, Ko-er wouldn't marry him. Compared to marrying someone she didn't like, Nangong Ko-er was even more unwilling to marry Jiang Xiu, because she knew that Jiang Xiu didn't love her, but Cheng Lingran, who was far away in Jiangnan. It was much more painful to marry a man who didn't love her back than to marry a man who didn't love her. At least she would get what she wanted. However, Miss Ko-er was most afraid that Jiang Xiu would cheat on her sooner or later because he loved Cheng Lingran deeply. She would rather cheat on him than let him cheat on her. In short, she would just casually marry anyone. In any case, the political marriage was just in name. You play, I play, I play, I play, I play. She could also put more of her experience into cultivation. Her dream was to one day become an expert like Jiang Xiu, or even beat Jiang Xiu to the ground. That would be even more perfect. In that case, that guy would not be able to be arrogant. Miss Ko-er liked to see Jiang Xiu's face when he was defeated. His cold face was very interesting when he was pitiful, which made him warm and cute. Thinking of Jiang Xiu, her mood gradually improved. At this moment, Nangong Mu received a call from Yuan Yang in his study. A voice spoke in awkward Chinese. Mr. Nangong, what's your plan for today's event? Chapter 413. Nangong Mu knew that the Juzhou family would not give up so easily. If they were Chinese, most of them would have given up in the face of Jiang Luoxia, who was ranked above them on the divine roll. However, the Ri nation people were more aggressive than the Chinese. It was a national trait. Most of the time, the Chinese would choose to avoid a fight if they could. If they did not fight, They would not lose. However, the Re-Nation people were bullies. If they did not fight, they would lose. At least, they had lost mentally. Mr. Jujio, Jiang Luoxia is the most powerful person in the Hua Nation. Even the big bosses in the imperial court have to respect him. The Nangong family can't afford to offend him. The man from the Jujio nunnery said in a low voice, I know the Nangong family's concerns. I know the Chinese very well. However, Mr. Nangong, please don't give up so easily. I'll be leaving for the Hua Nation in a few days. Nangong Mu was shocked. Mr. Jujio is coming to the Hua Nation? Yes. Nangong Mu said hesitantly. But Mr. Jiang said that Mr. Jujio is not allowed to come to the Hua Nation. If Mr. Jujio comes, won't Mr. Jiang's words be ignored? Ha ha. The man from the Jujio nunnery's voice was terrifying. It was like the laughter of a demon from hell. His laughter was mixed with bloodthirst and anger. To him, this was a great humiliation. Mr. Nangong, if you think that I should obey Mr. Jiang's words and never come to the Hua Nation, I'll tell you, Jiang Luoxia is not capable of that. And I'm not a coward like you. Although Nangong Mu was not happy with his arrogance, the man on the other side of the phone was a powerful person who ranked 9th on the divine roll. Moreover, he had a partnership with the Nangong family. It was not appropriate for him to show his stance at this time. He could only suppress the anger in his heart. I'm not looking down on Mr. Jujio. Mr. Jujio is ranked 9th on the divine list, and one of the most powerful people in the world. I'm just reminding Mr. Jujio out of goodwill to be prepared for Mr. Jiang's wrath. The man from Jujio nunnery might not be clear about Jiang Luoxia's character, but Nangong Mu was very clear about it. Jiang Luoxia had always been a man of his words, and he would easily exterminate the entire family. In China, there were very few people who dared to provoke him. It was not because he was the most powerful person in China. Since ancient times, martial artists were the sharp swords in the hands of those in power. However, Jiang Xiu was definitely not one of them. He was too ruthless. Whoever wanted to play with him had to be prepared to have their whole family buried with him. The man from Jujio nunnery said, Jiang Luoxia, I've long wanted to meet him. Just who is the strongest in East Asia, him or me? Nangong Mu said, this kind of benefit is nothing in Mr. Jujio's eyes. Is there a need to fight with Jiang Luoxia? Of course, he would not worry about Jiang Xiu or the man from Jujio nunnery. However, no matter who won or lost, it would be greatly disadvantageous to the Nangong clan. The most ideal scenario was for the two sides to not fight, and he would have the opportunity to gain benefits from both sides. If we don't fight, we can find out after meeting them and testing them a little. Although the man from Jujio nunnery was arrogant, he was not stupid. Jiang Xiu was able to kill the 7 gods in East China alone, so he was very strong. He would not be so reckless as to fight to the death with Jiang Xiu. If he could not win, he would immediately withdraw and leave. If he wanted to leave, no one would be able to stop him. Then I'll wait for Mr. Jujio to come to China. When Jiang Xiu went to the Nangong clan, the matter of finding Zui Yuchen was delayed. Qingyu Entertainment had already closed down. After beating up Xiao Xuerong went to Xiangjiang to act. Although the world had changed, the entertainment industry did not decline at all. On the contrary, it became even more popular. In this world filled with the unknown, chasing after stars allowed fans to free themselves from confusion and obtain spiritual sustenance. After asking about Zui Yuchen, Xiao Xuerong was still depressed. It had been a full 3 years, and she had already grown from a little diva to a diva. Her original contract had also expired, and she had already opened her own studio. However, the boss who signed her contract from beginning to end, she had only seen him once. Speaking of which, it was quite sad. In such a big capital, Jiang Xiu found that there was no one to see him. At night, he was all alone. Of course, there was also the Lin family. However, he kept a respectful distance from the Lin family. If they did not come to him, Jiang Xiu would never take the initiative to look for them. During this year, Lin Yueling did not have much contact with the Lin family. After the incident in Harbin, she and Jiang Yi were in trouble again. Just like before, the Lin family immediately drew a clear line with them. This made Lin Yueling see more clearly that it was impossible for them to contact each other on ordinary days. He called Nangong Ko, and asked her to come out. Jiang Xiu always looked for her for one thing. Nangong Ko was not in a good mood. In addition, they had just met during the day, so she was not in the mood to go out with him. Therefore, she decisively rejected Jiang Xiu. Therefore, he decided to stay in his residence and cultivate. However, when he cultivated in the territory of the Hua nation, Jiang Xiu felt that he was suppressed by a certain force. It was very uncomfortable. Absorbing spiritual power into one's body was like breathing. When one's mouth and nose were separated by a layer of membrane, it was very difficult to breathe. If he absorbed too much, he would even feel suffocated. Of course, this had something to do with the amount of spiritual power Jiang Xiu absorbed. The more spiritual power he absorbed, the more obvious it would be. When he was a lower-level god, he could not feel it, let alone other martial artists of the Hua nation. Jiang Xiu suspected that this should be related to the remaining longevity rune stone. It suppressed the Hua nation and prevented the alien world from coming to the territory of the Hua nation for a long time. Intuitively speaking, Jiang Xiu's strength was still far from this suppressive force. As for how big the gap was, he had no way of knowing. However, it was definitely not small. He was absolutely not confident that he could face this force head-on. Although he did not know the specific strength of this force, Jiang Xiu knew that it was the force of the world. However, he had just touched the threshold of the world's laws. Even his godhead was just a shadow. If he really wanted to form a complete godhead, he had to obtain this force and merge it with the runes of the 5 longevity runes that he already had to form a complete world's laws. Then his godhead would also be complete. He would never leave the yang spirit and become an earth god. Phew. This kind of suppressed cultivation was very uncomfortable. Even Jiang Xiu, a cultivation maniac, was a little tired of it at this moment. Looks like my judgment was correct. The alien world's slow arrival in the Hua nation was indeed caused by the longevity rune stone, which was the remaining spirit stone of the nation. If that was the case, once Jiang Xiu took the spirit stone of the nation and absorbed it, the Hua nation would be like other countries. The alien world would accelerate the arrival of the alien world and usher in another huge change. When that time came, talents would definitely emerge from nowhere and hundreds of schools of thought would contend with each other. I really can't wait. He was not waiting for the Hua nation to integrate with the new era. He could not wait to integrate with the spirit stone of the nation to obtain the world's laws and form a complete godhead. As for the godhead, according to the countless divine cultivators on the immortal martial continent, the more complete it was, the more difficult it would be to progress and change in the future. Usually, divine cultivators would form their godhead while comprehending more laws. But right now, Jiang Xiu couldn't wait any longer. Even if Earth had fused with a new world, to evolve to an existence on the same level as the immortal martial continent, leaving aside the question of whether it would be possible. Even if it was possible, who knew how long it would take? 1,000 years, 5,000 years, he could not afford to wait. He wanted to leave the Earth as soon as possible and return to the immortal martial continent that belonged to him. That was where Jiang Xiu's everything was. He had lived there for a longer time. He had lived on Earth for more than 30 years, and on the immortal martial continent, he had lived for more than 3,000 years. The first rays of the morning sun shone in through the window. The flowers and plants in the private courtyard were bathed in sunlight. When Jiang Xiu walked out of the room, the servants had already prepared breakfast for him. "Morning, Mr. Jiang." "Morning." A middle-aged man rushed in from outside. He seemed to be someone from the big boss's office. "Mr. Jiang, what's the matter?" The man said, "We've received news that an expert from Ri Nation has come from Ri Nation. His name is Juzhou Nunnery, and it's said that he's here for Mr. Jiang. The big boss asked me to come over personally and ask if you need any help." Juzhou Nunnery. Jiang Xiu's expression did not change at all, but a cold glint flashed in his eyes. He had warned Juzhou Nunnery not to set foot in the Hua nation. Not only did Juzhou Nunnery ignore his warning, he came immediately. "No need. You can go back. This is a private matter." Chapter 414. The man made a sound of acknowledgement, and was about to leave when he hesitated. He stopped at the door and said, "Mr. Jiang, Juju Noonan is here as the Re Nation's ambassador. Anything can cause diplomatic trouble." Jiang Xiu smiled. This was the reason why the big boss asked him to come. However, he, Jiang Xiu, had never had any scruples. Back then, the Zhuge family could not even threaten him with his parents. What is diplomatic trouble? His cold voice made the secretary's hair stand on end. His legs turned to jelly, and he almost knelt down. "I'm sorry, Mr. Jiang, I'm sorry." He ignored the secretary who was almost scared out of his wits. He took out his phone and called Wang Xintong. "Jujoichiro." He hung up after saying these simple words. The secretary's face was full of fear. He wanted to cry but had no tears. According to what he knew, Jujo Ichiro should be going to the capital airport to pick up Jujo Ainan's plane. Mr. Jiang wanted to make a move on Jujo Ichiro at this time. It was too cruel. No wonder the forces in Hua Nation did not dare to enter Jiangnan. The man in front of him was too cruel. In the black car, Jujo Ichiro was excited. He was looking forward to the spectacular scene of his father's arrival. "Jiang Luoxia, aren't you awesome? Didn't you forbid my father from coming to Hua Nation? Now that my father is here, what can you do?" Jujo Ichiro worshipped his father from the bottom of his heart. It was a worship that had been deeply rooted in his bones since he was young. In his heart, his father was invincible. "Young master, will the family head fight with the family head?" "Yes, he will." Jujo Ichiro's eyes were shining. Not only will he fight, but he will also defeat the strongest person in Hua Nation in front of all the Hua Nation people. He will let them know that Japan is the real high-ranking race. We are the real descendants of the Protoss. The Hua Nation people are just a low-level evolved race. Ha ha ha. The samurai beside him was very excited after hearing this. It was as if Jujo Ichiro's words were the truth. He nodded repeatedly and his face was full of excitement. "I'm really looking forward to the Patriarch's duel." Up ahead was the Imperial Capital Airport. Jujo Ichiro looked at the watch on his wrist. The time was just right, and the plane should be arriving soon. He directly entered through the special passage. Not far away, he could see the team organized by the Hua Nation to welcome the foreign guests. This time, Jujo Ichiro came as the ambassador of the Re Nation. Along the way, there were people who had arranged the ceremony and prepared fresh flowers. That's how hypocritical the Hua people are. The plane from Japan landed smoothly. There was a big shot on the plane who shocked the world. After the cabin door was opened, the welcoming ceremony started with the sound of drums and horns. It was a lively and solemn scene. A man with long silver hair appeared at the entrance of the airport. He was not very tall, only about 1.7 meters tall, and he wore a black kimono with red silk and wooden clogs. However, he had a pale but handsome face, and it was impossible to tell his age. However, his image had already spread throughout Japan, and he was known as the most powerful man in Japan, Jujo Noonan. His face was solemn, and he did not smile. He ignored the welcoming team and walked down slowly. On his back, there was a fire phoenix that soared to the 9 heavens. The Re Nation people were so high profile, as if they were afraid that others would not know that they had the phoenix god rune. However, it seemed that anything holy would become evil when it came to the Re Nation people. Their worship of ghosts and gods was not as revered as the Hua Nation people, and they dared to enslave ghosts and gods. "Haha, it's father. Father is here. Drive faster." Through the car window, Jujo Ichiro could clearly see his father alighting from the plane. Suddenly, a man descended from the sky in front of the car. He was wearing a green mask with fangs and a black cape. He slowly pulled out a long sword. Who is it? What is he trying to do? The man raised the long sword and swung it down. At this moment, the sword light was extremely cold, and it was more than 10 meters long. Under the sunlight, it looked like a burning flame. Boom! The fierce sword light came down like a cutting machine, and it directly cut the black car in half. Everything was too sudden. Jujo Ichiro, who was in the car, did not even have time to react. He saw the roof of the car being cut open, and the fiery red sword light was already in front of him. He did not even have time to scream before his whole body was cut in half like the car. Fierce flames burst out, and the car was cut in half. Everything was too sudden. and it was swept away by the heat. Umph. The man snorted and kept his sword. His body suddenly rushed into the sky, and in an instant, he disappeared without a trace. The violent explosion and the sound of drums and horns all stopped. Everyone looked at the car, because everyone knew who was sitting in the car. It was Jujio Ichiro's body that had been split in half, lying in a pool of blood. Half of his face could still be seen clearly, and even at this moment, the muscles on his face were still twitching. Ichiro. Jujio Nunnery's man's eyesight was very good. He turned his head and saw clearly that right under his eyes, his son was killed by someone. His son was dripping with blood, and his closed eye seemed to be asking him for help. However, it was too late, and he was already killed. The fiery smoke fell on the spilled gasoline of the car, and with a buzz, the flames soared into the sky, and the flames engulfed the body in an instant. Ichiro. Jujio Nunnery's man rushed into the flames unknowingly. He carried out Jujio Ichiro's body, but what he carried out was only half of the body, and the other half was already burned. Ah! Jiangluoxia, Jiangluoxia. He was in a state of madness after losing his beloved son, and his eyes were red. He knew that this was Jiangluoxia's punishment for him. Jiangluoxia had said that the Jujio family was not allowed to step into China again. He had violated the rules, and he had to be punished. I'm going to kill you. Boom! Behind him, the gasoline of the car exploded, and the flames rose 10 to 20 meters into the sky. However, Jujio Nunnery's man was not afraid of the flames at all. His anger was even stronger than the flames. The foreign affairs personnel in charge of receiving the plane were completely dumbfounded. Killing Jujio Nunnery's son in front of him, and only Jiangluoxia had the guts, the ability, and the motive to do so. It's over, something big has happened. He had to take the blame for this. However, it was not a matter of who should take the blame. This matter had to be reported to Diaotai immediately. Both Jujio Nunnery's man and Jujio Ichiro were extremely important figures in Ri Nation. This diplomatic matter was serious. Quick, call back quickly. Mr. Mitsumoto of the Ri Nation's embassy in China was so angry that his face turned red. He pointed at the foreign affairs personnel and said, You must take responsibility for this matter. Ri Nation will not let this matter rest. The foreign affairs personnel's mind was completely blank. He had never imagined that such a big thing would happen while receiving the plane. It was supposed to be a pleasant task, but it had turned into a nightmare. Mr. Mitsumoto, please calm down. I will report this matter to Diaotai immediately. We will definitely give you an explanation. The incident had happened in the capital airport of Hua Nation. No matter what, they could not shirk responsibility. Explanation? Let's see how you explain it. The one who died is our Mr. Jujio's beloved son. Even if you kill him, you won't be able to compensate for it. The angry Ri Nation ambassador rushed forward, grabbed the foreign affairs personnel's collar, and raised his fist to punch him. Calm down, calm down. The people at the side were also caught off guard. A punch landed on the foreign affairs personnel's face, and he fell to the ground with a muffled groan. Director Wang. Director Wang's face twisted, and his glasses fell to the ground. He fell to the ground and screamed. The people at the side quickly went to help him up, but Director Wang seemed to be in a semi-conscious state. The whites of his eyes kept rolling up. Quick, send him to the hospital. The foreign affairs personnel at the side were furious. He said angrily, Why did you hit him? Mitsumoto said angrily, Hitting him? Hitting him is already considered light. I even want to kill him? His eyes were bloodshot and bulging. He looked like he wanted to eat someone. Our Mr. Jujio's beloved son died on the soil of Hua Nation. Ri Nation will definitely pursue this matter to the end. And Hua Nation will also have to give us an explanation. Director Wang, who was in charge of the work, fainted. Although the people present were furious, they were burdened with too many restrictions. They did not dare to speak up, let alone retaliate. Chapter 4:15. The news spread like the wind, and reporters from all walks of life swarmed over. However, the Hua Nation would regulate the news of malicious influence, but paper could not contain fire. The martial arts world of the Hua Nation was the first to explode. Jiang Luoxia forbade the Juzhou family from entering the Hua nation. The man from the Juzhou nunnery ignored the warning and came to the Hua nation. Jiang Luoxia killed him in front of everyone. The two sides were like fire and water. Everyone was guessing that an unprecedented battle between the top 10 on the divine roll would take place. Jiang Xiu once again shouldered the responsibility of protecting the reputation of the Hua nation. The man from Juzhou nunnery didn't rush over to settle the score with Jiang Xiu right away. Although he was furious, he didn't lose his rationality. He wanted to compare his own strength with Jiang Xiu's. At times like this, he needed to be calm. He wasn't a person who would be blinded by hatred. In the Nangong family's mansion, Nangongmu was chatting with a few juniors in the backyard. What happened outside was far beyond their expectations. Jiang Xiu's counterattack was too fierce and ruthless. He didn't leave any room for negotiation. They were already shocked when it happened to others. Now that it happened right in front of their eyes, they felt cold sweat dripping down their backs. Jiang Luoxia is really a fierce and ruthless person. He should be a tyrant from head to toe. Whether he's a fierce and ruthless person or a tyrant, it's really scary. The cause of this incident was the daughter of the Nangong family, Nangong Ko-er. They did not expect such serious consequences to occur. If this matter was not handled well, the two nations might even go to war. Women were really a femme fatale. I hope that our Nangong family will be able to quietly survive this storm. In fact, Nangongmu always felt that the Nangong family had suffered an unexpected disaster. A good marriage alliance was ruined, and all their investments were wasted. What can we do when the gods fight? Nan Gongliang said. I think Jiang Luoxia and the man from Juzhou nunnery will have a battle sooner or later. Dad, who will win between the two? Although Nangongmu was not a martial cultivator, his eyes were always sharp and accurate. He was able to find the answer from the development of the situation and the reactions of the crowd. He was a genius. Jiang Luoxia is a rare genius in China. It's said that his flying dagger can even defeat the sword light of heaven and earth. Many people think that he should be the best in the world. First place at that time. All of the Nangong disciples present were in awe of their father's judgment. Although Nangongmu did not dare to say that he was never wrong, the chances of him being wrong were very low. The sound of a car came from the entrance, and everyone looked over. At this moment, they were a little frightened, afraid that something bad would happen. However, whatever they feared, it happened. The black car stopped in front of the Nangong family mansion, and a long-haired Re-Nation man in a kimono stepped out of the car. The expressions of the Nangong family members changed drastically. Juzhou nunnery. Why is he here? A tense atmosphere shrouded the hearts of everyone in the Nangong family. Juzhou Annan's son had just been killed by Jiang Luo's men at the airport. It was definitely not a good thing for him to come at this time. Nangongmu hurried over. Mr. Juzhou, I apologize for not going out to meet you. Juzhou nunnery's face was solemn. I was kind enough to hear from Mr. Nangong that Jiang Luoxia is the best in the world. Have you asked the other gods on the divine roll? Nangongmu did not reply. It was not easy to answer this question. If he told the truth, he would offend Juzhou nunnery. Mr. Nangong, you have always been known as a fortune teller in China. However, this is a new era where information is exploding. It is best to have a large amount of data to support your predictions. Mr. Nangong, you might not know this, but before I came to China, I went to America and fought with Silverwing in secret. We were evenly matched. What? The Nangong family members exclaimed. Silverwing was ranked third, and the top 3 contestants were considered to be on par with each other. It was hard to say who would emerge victorious. Although the man from Juzhou nunnery was ranked 9th, he might be on par with Silverwing, which meant that he had the strength to compete with Jiang Luoxi. No wonder he dared to ignore Jiang Luoxi's warning and set foot in the Hua nation. Where is Nangong Ko? His Mandarin was fluent, and it was difficult to speak it over the phone the day before. However, in just one day he had learned it so well. As expected, language was not a problem for gods. What are you going to do? Nangongmu widened his eyes nervously. I heard that she is Jiang Luoxia's mistress. Don't worry, I won't kill her. Juzhou nunnery took a step forward. His wooden clogs made a crisp sound as they stepped on the ground. Nangongmu hesitated. Do you think you can stop me? Nangongmu said helplessly, she's at home. I'll ask someone to call her out. The man from the Jujio nunnery had already taken his second step. The stone floor beneath his feet was forcefully shattered, and the entire ground seemed to tremble. Every step he took was like an immortal ascending to the heavens. There was an ethereal air about him, but his strength was as heavy as 1,000 gold. Along the way, the stones on the ground were all shattered. Nangongko come out. Nangongko had also heard that Jiang Xiu had killed Jujio Ichiro. She did not expect it to be so serious, and she was a little absent-minded. Suddenly, she heard a thunderous voice, and she was startled. She opened the window and saw a man in a kimono flying toward her. Jujio Nunnery. Although she had never seen him before, she could guess who he was. Jujio Nunnery's eyes were dazzling, and his hair was white. He looked very scary. Mr. Jujio, please don't implicate the innocent. Jujio Nunnery's man looked at Nangongko. Her skin was snow white. Her face was like a peach blossom. Her eyes were big and bright. Her nose was tall, and her lips were red. You are indeed a devastatingly beautiful woman. No wonder Jiang Luoxia fell in love with you. Everyone in the Nangong family held their breaths. Jujio Nunnery's man could kill someone in the blink of an eye. Although Nangongko's cultivation was very close to that of a demigod, she was like an ant in front of Jujio Nunnery's man. What do you want? Nangongko fearlessly raised her head. Don't be rude to Mr. Jujio. Ko-er's father, Nangongjin, was so nervous that he almost suffocated. Nangongko's beautiful eyes were still wide open, and she did not back down. Aren't you afraid of me? Nangongko said. Of course I am afraid of Mr. Jujio. But so what? Oh my, Jujio Nunnery's man said. You are brave, talented, and beautiful. But it is a pity that Jiang Luoxia killed my son. And you are his mistress. This whole thing happened because of you. How do you think I should punish you? Nangongko did not say anything. Jujio Nunnery's man flipped his sword, and a talisman appeared in his hand. It was said that the Jujio Nunnery's family used to be a great Yinyang master in the Ri nation. Amnesty. The talisman started burning, and the flames were quite strange, as they emitted a very red light. Suddenly, they shot toward Nangongko's forehead, and all of the red talisman flames entered her forehead. Nangongko felt a burning sensation, and she felt as if her whole body was engulfed in flames. However, she didn't utter a single sound. However, her body started to tremble, and she clenched her teeth. Beads of sweat dripped down her forehead, and her small face became pale. This is my fire wind talisman flame. It will enter your divine essence directly. If it is not extinguished in 24 hours, you will burn to death. Take care of yourself. His words were like thunder in the ears of the Nangong family. Nangongko's mother fainted on the spot. Let Jiang Luoxia do it. But the possibility of him saving you is less than 10%. After saying this, Jujio Nunnery's man turned around and left. This was the purpose of his visit to the Nangong family. Nangongko was his mistress, and there was no reason for him not to save her. As long as he could save her, Jujio Nunnery's man would be able to know Jiang Xiu's cultivation level. As soon as Jujio Nunnery's man left, Nangongko collapsed on the ground. Her whole body was covered in cold sweat, and her body started to twitch. What should I do? How about we find Mr. Jiang? How do we contact Mr. Jiang? Hurry up, how do we contact him? Nangongko said. No, don't contact him. Chapter 416. When the onlookers saw Nangongko rolling on the ground, they couldn't help but shudder. The large fireball had penetrated her glabella, and even the rune had penetrated her body, so it wasn't an exaggeration to say that she was hovering between life and death. Why don't you find him? The members of the Nangong family were confused. The man from Jujio Nunnery had said clearly that if she couldn't get rid of the talisman in 24 hours, she would be burned to death. Only Jiang Xiu could save her now. Why didn't they find him? No. Nangongko's mother held her daughter and cried bitterly. She didn't expect that she would suffer so much, and she might even lose her life. Are you worried that Mr. Jiang won't help you? Ko shook her head. I caused this trouble, and I don't want to get him involved. She wanted to get rid of the Juzhou family, so she let Jiang Xiu fall into her trap. She felt that it was only right and proper, and Jiang Xiu indeed did not care. However, the matter had blown up, and Jiang Xiu had to face a life-and-death battle with the men of the Juzhou nunnery. He would have to risk his life, and she did not dare to harm Jiang Xiu. Juzhou nunnery is in trouble, and he wants to test Jiang Xiu's strength. If I find him, I'll hurt him. Silly girl. Why do you still care about him when you are in such a terrible situation? Ko'er's mother held her daughter in her arms and was heartbroken. In her eyes, nothing was more important than her daughter's safety. Ko'er, your mother is right this time. You must listen to her. Make a call. As for whether Mr. Jiang will save them or not, it's up to him to decide, Nangong Jin said from the side. Nangong Ko'er was still shaking her head, but her face was pale and her body was trembling. Ko'er, do you want to sacrifice your life for this? Jiang Luoxia has just killed Juzhou Ichiro. Juzhou will not give up until he finds out the depth of Jiang Luoxia. You will only be sacrificed in vain. If you die because of this, it will also be a great shame to Jiang Luoxia. Nangong Mu said. No. Nangong Ko'er insisted. However, no one in the Nangong family could contact Jiang Xiu, and they didn't dare to contact Jiang Xiu. Let's send her to the hospital first. Although everyone didn't have high hopes for the hospital, they still considered sending them there first. The hospital now was different from before. There was a department that specialized in dealing with divine manifestations, called the Combat Medical Department. They could also deal with some injuries caused by divine manifestations. After Nangong Ko'er was sent to the hospital gave her a thorough examination. However, it was a pity that the current medical technology could only treat her body, and even her veins and internal organs could be treated. However, the talisman fire was injected into her body by the divine power, so it was impossible to find it. The doctor gave Ko'er a painkiller which could only relieve her pain for 10 minutes, and then it would worsen again. It was very painful, as if she was being burned by fire, but there was no fire. It was obvious that this kind of pain was enough to destroy a person's willpower. In the end, when she couldn't stand it anymore, the doctor gave her a sedative and made her fall asleep. What should we do now? We only have 24 hours, the Nangong family member said. The Nangong family had some connections, and they invited several demigods to help them, but they couldn't do anything about it. They even invited a demigod to help them, but he still couldn't do anything about it. Miss Ko'er's condition is very strange. The yang fire is surging in her body, but it can't be released. I guess she's accumulating power, and once it explodes, she will be burned to ashes in an instant, the demigod said. Hearing this, the members of the Nangong family all looked pale, and their hearts ached as they looked at Nangong Ko'er's pale face. Is there really no way to cure her? The demigod shook his head. This demigod's hair was very strange. It was black and white, and it looked like the Tai Chi fish. This demigod was a Taoist who had become a monk in the mountains. Due to the existence of the spiritual stone, there were fewer demigods in the Hua nation than in other families. However, it was said that this demigod had mastered the art of medicine before he became a demigod. The demigod felt Nangong Ko'er's pulse, and he could only see the symptoms, but not the cause of her illness. Juzhou nunnery is ranked 9th on the divine list, and Jiang Luoxia is the only person in the Hua nation who can remove the talisman. If you want to kill Miss Ko'er, you have to find Jiang Luoxia, the demigod said. Well, Nangong Mu thought for a while. Although Ko'er didn't want to contact Jiang Xiu, it didn't mean that they couldn't find him. The demigod was in the capital, and the Nangong family could find him. However, the problem was, I'll find a way. The news that Juzhou nunnery had come to China, and that Jiang Luoxia had killed Juzhou Ichiro spread across the Shenzhen world like a hurricane. One was the most powerful cultivator in Japan, and the other was the most powerful cultivator in the Hua nation. Therefore, this battle was regarded as another war between Japan and Hua nation. Juzhou nunnery was in the Japanese embassy at the moment. The Chinese side was already in an uproar over the incident of the Re-Nation ambassador assaulting the director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They were filled with righteous indignation, but in the end, they had yet to make a corresponding decision. Regarding the Re-Nation's attitude, they had to wait for the outcome of the matter between Jiang Xiu and the man from Juzhou Nunnery. Phew! Jiang Xiu was overjoyed. The spiritual qi in the air above the manor was like a tornado, and the fierce wind rushed into his body like a hole. Boom, boom! There was thunder and lightning in the tornado. Every drop of Jiang Xiu's blood was trembling, and the sound of firecrackers was heard. Jiang Xiu was like a demon in the wind, and his clothes were fluttering in the wind. I have more than 3,000 years of cultivation experience, and I know the law of thunder like the back of my hand, but I can't even touch the threshold. Boom, boom! Come out! Jiang Xiu shouted angrily. He put his hands together and activated his divine power. The tornado above his head rumbled even louder, and countless bolts of lightning were raging inside. This is the last time. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in Jiang Xiu's eyes. His entire body was surging with the sound of electric currents. Crackle, crackle. The lightning in the hurricane finally emerged. Like a heavenly net, it flashed towards Jiang Xiu, electrifying his entire body. Boom. There was a thunderous explosion in Jiang Xiu's body. The blood in his body swelled like a bubble, and there seemed to be a vast force inside the bubble, trying to burst the blood bubble. Bang! Jiang Xiu's body shook violently, and there was a nuclear explosion in his body. At this moment, his whole body became crystal clear, as if he was made of white jade. Bang! Bang! The vast power of heaven and earth was awakened in the blood. It was different from immortal cultivators. Immortal cultivators absorbed the power of heaven and earth into their bodies, but divine cultivators had the permission of heaven and earth to awaken the power sealed in their blood. Therefore, divine cultivators paid more attention to racial talent. This was the limitation of their race, and it was much more limited than immortal cultivators. However, there was one advantage, and that was that their divine bodies were stronger. Condense. In the blink of an eye, the hurricane with a radius of several miles above his head had been cut into pieces by the lightning. The lightning inside had completely rushed out, flashing continuously in the sky. Suddenly, it all entered his body. At this moment, Jiang Xiu, who was floating in the air, was surrounded by lightning. Heavenly thunder law, elementary. Jiang Xiu opened his eyes, and lightning kept flashing in his pitch-black pupils. In the past, the lightning was just ordinary lightning of heaven and earth, but now it was heavenly lightning. Huff! Jiang Xiu had practiced heavenly thunder law for a while in his previous life, and it could be said that he was familiar with it. However, he didn't expect it to be so difficult to practice. It was already so difficult to reach the perfect stage of heavenly thunder law. Earth really wasn't suitable for cultivation. In addition to this reason, there was another reason. The heavenly thunder law was restricted a lot in the yang spirit realm, and even in the earth spirit realm. However, once one reached the heavenly spirit realm, it would be easier to comprehend it. Heaven and earth allowed one to comprehend it, and when the time came, success would naturally follow naturally. However, when the time came, one's Godhead would be perfect, and it would restrict one's cultivation. This was a paradox. The immortal martial continent had developed for countless years, but no one had been able to solve this problem. Jiang Xiu also thought about it, but he didn't know where to start. Hey, it's Mr. Jiang. Old Master Nangong asked me to tell you something. Miss Nangong was planted with a fire talisman by Juzhou Nunnery. She only has 24 hours to live, and no one can cure her. Chapter 417. The man from Juzhou Nunnery slowly raised his head. He was wearing a white warrior's vest with his thumbs hanging on his belt. There were 2 red sword tassels hanging on his chest. It was already late at night, so the lights were not very bright. In this Japanese-styled courtyard, only a corner of it was lit. A light drizzle fell from the sky and fell on his face. At this moment, he had buried the pain of losing his son deep in his heart. There was only one thing on his mind. Jiang Luoxia. It had already been more than 7 hours since Nangong or was implanted with the fire talisman, and every minute that passed by, his confidence would increase by a little bit. After 7 hours, when night fell, his fighting spirit became more and more intense, and the hazy drizzle that fell from the sky became faster and denser in his eyes. It was just like when his saber's speed reached its peak, it would be the time for him to strike. There were only 17 hours left. Lord Jujio, Li Xuanzi left the hospital. He didn't even try to deactivate the fire talisman. He didn't even have the courage to try. The man behind him said in Japanese. Of course he didn't. He had heard about Li Xuanzi in Japan. He was a Taoist who was good at cultivating his body. He was a rare genius of the Taoist sect. However, he didn't have much fighting power. He didn't even make it to the bottom of the divine role. Of course, he wouldn't dare to do anything rash when facing a top immortal like Li Xuanzi. No one knew what would happen if he used his divine sense to probe Nangong Ko, Er's divine vitality. Did he know? The man behind him said. Yes, he knew before sunset. Wow. The man from Jujio Nunnery's eyes suddenly lit up. He was afraid of Jiang Luoxia, but Jiang Luoxia was also afraid of him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hesitated after learning about the fire talisman. Lord Jujio, Jiang Luoxia definitely doesn't dare to use the dispelling talisman. He's afraid of failure. He's the same as the other Chinese. Although his name is exaggerated, he's actually a coward. Jujio Nunnery's man's eyes were exceptionally sharp. As the night deepened, a plane from North Korea landed at the airport in the capital. A young girl in a red coat got off the plane. Her skin was as white as paper, like an iceberg. A bodyguard in black with sunglasses held an umbrella for her and escorted her to the car. He said, "Go find him." "You've already eaten. Do you still want to go?" The middle-aged man sitting in the car said. "Go." This woman was the female lead of the dung-splashing sect, Long Yingqing. She was also a famous goddess. Her gaze was cast outside the window, looking at the drizzling rain in the capital of China. More than 3 years ago, their Long family had fled from here to North Korea. This time, when they returned, the city had developed rapidly, and they were completely unfamiliar with it. More than a year ago, Jiang Luoxia had survived, and some of the Long family's forces had rushed back to China. China had also given the green light to the Diaoyu Islands, but in the blink of an eye, more than a year had passed. "Jiang Xiu, this time, are you still as arrogant and conceited as before?" Long Yingqing's mind flashed with the Battle of Qian Donghua more than a year ago. Jiang Xiu had consecutively slaughtered 7 gods, and stood in front of her like a ruler. She had been so scared that she had been paralyzed on the ground. Humiliation, a great humiliation. She had suffered 2 great humiliation, and both of them had been given to her by Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu was like her life's nemesis. "Are you sure that the little girl from the Nangong family is his mistress?" "It's hard to say, but it should be true." It's said that Jujio Ichiro caught him in the act. In the end, he was angered, and the Jujio family no longer entered China. Jujio Nunnery's man domineeringly came to China, and the matter was blown out of proportion. Long Yingqing said, "I thought he didn't get close to women. How is that possible? No matter how strong he is still a man, and a young boy in his early 20s. It's normal for a man and a woman to fall in love." He seemed to realize that he had gone a bit overboard in front of Long Yingqing. After all, the other party was a girl, and also his junior. He coughed a bit awkwardly. "Isn't it inappropriate for us to rashly visit like this? After all, the other party is Jiang Luoxia." Long Yingqing shook her head and said, "No. For this kind of small matter he won't mind. At most he won't see you. But tonight, he won't refuse to see me. He might be eager for me to come." Long Yingqing, who boasted that she understood Jiang Xiu very well, entered the private manor that the big boss had arranged for Jiang Xiu. "It's been a long time, Jiang Xiu classmate." When Long Yingqing saw Jiang Xiu, she specially mentioned the word classmate. The two of them were both students of the Imperial Capital University. Long Yingqing was 1 year older than Jiang Xiu, but her actual age was a bit younger than Jiang Xiu. "It's you. Running to a man's house in the middle of the night. Is this the custom of the people of North Korea?" Long Yingqing's pale face, bright red lips, and the fact that she had been in North Korea for a long time, Her temperament really did have the flavor of a woman from North Korea. Fortunately, he wasn't wearing court clothes, otherwise it would be even more similar. Then do you like it, or don't you like it? Her face was serious as her bright black eyes stared at Jiang Xiu. I don't like girls who take the initiative, they feel frivolous. Long Yingqing's anger rushed to the top of her head. This fellow's mouth was even more annoying than his person. We haven't seen each other for more than a year, but you're still so annoying, Jiang Xiu said. You seem to have forgotten that your life is mine. When they were in East China, Jiang Xiu spared her life. Long Yingqing had no reason to forget this matter. Long Yingqing said, so I came in the middle of the night to pay my debt. Oh. Jiang Xiu raised his spirits and was a little interested. Long Yingqing's black eyes looked straight at Jiang Xiu's face and asked, the rumors outside say that the little girl from the Nangong family is your mistress. Is that true? Mistress? Jiang Xiu didn't like this title. Originally, this mistress wasn't a bad word, but now it implied a moral corruption. If you say so. Jiang Xiu didn't need to explain to Long Yingqing. This really surprised me, but you haven't gone to save him yet, are you worried? Long Yingqing said. The choice from a year ago is placed in front of you once again. Let's form an alliance and I'll save him for you. Whether it works or not is another matter. If you don't want the man from Juzhou Nunnery to leave China, we can work together. Jiang Xiu looked at Long Yingqing in front of him. Although her cultivation had increased, she felt good about herself and couldn't change it. Or, was it because she wanted to find what she lost too much? After this matter is done, I'll split half of the benefits in Japan. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly and turned to look out the window. She said she was here to repay a debt, but in the end, she was here for the benefits. Jiang Xiu really thought that this girl was affectionate and righteous, distinguishing between kindness and hatred. The world was bustling for benefits, and the world was bustling for benefits. Be straightforward. In short, even if you don't care about the life or death of your mistress, you should still care about your reputation. Now everyone is saying that you're afraid of the man from Juzhou Nunnery. I heard from far away in the capital. Long Yingqing said. Her news was, of course, told to him by the Long family. In reality, not many people knew about the situation. It's not early, I'm sleepy. Don't dream of serving me in bed, you're not qualified. After speaking, Jiang Xiu turned and walked towards his bedroom. She was dumbfounded and flabbergasted. Was he crazy? Who would want to serve him in bed? Who was not qualified? Who did he think he was? Jiang, if you have something to say it tomorrow. Long Yingqing's mouth opened slightly. She was very angry. Her expression was very similar to the angry Korean women in Korean dramas. She was very helpless, as if she was about to faint from anger. Then her eyes sank. Could it be that he was really afraid of the man from Juzhou Nunnery? Was the divine phoenix rune really that strong? She took a step forward and reached out to push the door that was about to close. Do you really not care about her life or death? Jiang Xiu ignored her and directly went to bed. He pulled the quilt over himself and closed his eyes. No wonder your wife divorced you. I really feel bad for the girl from the Nangong family. I heard that she was also an extremely beautiful girl. Are you really so heartless as to watch her die? As long as you say the word, I can take action. I don't dare to say 100%, but I still have a 60% to 70% chance. Long Yingqing's soul mutated, and her strength soared very quickly. This made Jiang Xiu a little envious. She shouldn't be bragging when she said 60% to 70%. A soul-mutated person's understanding of Shenyuan was not comparable to ordinary people. However, Jiang Xiuhao seemed to have really fallen asleep just like that on the bed. His breathing was steady and long, and even cold-blooded was not enough to describe his feelings. It was as if nothing could shake him in the slightest. Long Yingqing wasted her breath. Chapter 418. Many people didn't sleep that night, and many big shots in Dio Yutai couldn't fall asleep, including the big boss. The reason was that Jiang Xiu didn't go to the hospital to treat Nangong Ko. Many people thought that Jiang Luoxia didn't want to fight, and many people laughed at him secretly. The Nangong family was disheartened. Looking at the unconscious Nangong Ko, in the hospital bed, they shook their heads secretly. The alarm clock on the wall showed that it was 4 o'clock in the morning. Time passed little by little, but Jiang Luoxia still didn't show up, and they couldn't see any hope. "I'll go and find him." Nangong Jin broke the silence in the ward. He was going to find Jiang Luoxia and ask Jiang Luoxia to help his daughter in front of him. Although Jiang Xiu and Nangong Ko didn't admit it, he couldn't just watch his daughter die. He received the news a long time ago. If he wanted to come, he would have come long ago. He's afraid of Jujiu Nunnery's man. Nangong Mu stopped his son. "He can't do anything to Jujiu Nunnery's man, but he can easily deal with you. But she can't wait any longer." Nangong Jin's eyes were filled with tears. He only had one daughter, and no father could stand by and do nothing when his daughter was dying. Alas, Jujiu Nunnery's men also couldn't fall asleep. He just stood in the yard like a statue, motionless. Although he didn't move, his heart rose and fell with time. "Oh, it's almost dawn." She spat out a sentence in Japanese and raised her head slightly. The sky in the distance was turning white, and it was really going to be bright. The time limit was getting closer and closer, and Jiang Luoxia had not appeared in the hospital from the beginning to the end. Jujiu Nunnery's confidence grew, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. It was a kind of physiological light, which gave him a strong sense of revenge. Moreover, when Nangong Ko was set on fire, he would challenge Jiang Luoxia. "Jiang Luoxia, you disappoint me." He had thought that Jiang Luoxia would be a formidable foe, like Silver Wing. He had not expected that Jiang Luoxia would not even have the courage to face him. For a competitive nation, this was very disappointing. "Lord Jujiu, you must be tired after standing for an entire night. Breakfast is already prepared." The sun rose, and the sunlight shone through the roof into the courtyard, landing on his body. The cold air was immediately dispelled, and he was bathed in the sunlight, feeling incomparably warm. All right. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, which was the time to plant the fire talisman. The fire talisman was planted at 10:30, so the 24 hours were almost up. Imperial Capital First Military Hospital. A man and a woman entered. Long Ingqing had followed him all the way, and the goddess had become his little follower. Jiang Xiu's long hair fluttered in the wind, and he was incomparably handsome, like a god. His eyes flashed with lightning. "Who are you looking for?" The nurse was a little dazzled when she saw the man and woman, especially Jiang Xiu. He was so handsome that it was a little too dazzling. There was no way to describe the visual impact on her at this moment. Her gaze was deeply attracted and she couldn't look away. "Nangong Ko," the nurse said. I will take you to her. This way, please." "He is so handsome." Countless nurses were excited. "Who is he?" "He is so handsome, and even the woman beside him is so beautiful. He is so perfect, just like a god." The nurse who led the way pointed at the ward in front of them and said, "Nangong Ko lives in this room." From afar, they could hear the sound of crying and wailing. It was almost time. The people of the Nangong family could not remember what time it was, but they felt that at this time, Nangong Ko's body would be burned in the next moment. Nangong Ko frowned, and her body trembled slightly. Cold sweat began to appear on her forehead. Suddenly, the door of the ward was pushed open, and the people of the Nangong family in the ward all turned their heads to look at it. A clear sound of footsteps approached them at a steady pace. The sound of the footsteps gave people a sense of calmness and dominance, because nothing else could be heard except for the sound of the footsteps. A perfect man's figure appeared at the door. Suddenly, all the people of the Nangong family opened their eyes wide. Jiang Xiu said calmly, "Everyone get out." His words seemed to have magical power, and all the people of the Nangong family followed his orders, and left the ward at once. Nangong Ko's birth mother put her hands together and kept praying. "Don't worry, she won't die." As soon as Jiang Xiu finished speaking, the door of the ward slowly closed. Then he walked over to Nangong Ko's side at a leisurely pace. He made a hand seal and pointed at Ko's forehead. A vast amount of divine power gathered in the hand seal, and many mysterious and ancient divine symbols were sent into Ko's divine power one after another. Using a talisman? A terrible light flashed in Jiang Xiu's eyes. The talisman of the Tianqing school was the best talisman in the celestial martial continent, and it was passed down from generation to generation. It could be said that the talisman of the Jiuzhou nunnery was showing off in front of an expert. In terms of understanding of divine vitality, the man of the Jiuzhou nunnery was even better than Jiang Xiu, a cultivator who had cultivated for more than 3,000 years. What? Phoenix fire? Yes, it knows how to make use of the fire that is beyond this world. No wonder it can be directly planted into divine vitality. But it's a pity that this talisman is too lousy, and it can't display the power of Phoenix fire. An ordinary ice talisman is enough to subdue you. Jiang Xiu changed the seal in his hand and said softly, "Condense." A cold energy was suddenly sucked into Nangong Ko, Er's divine vitality. He was much more careful than when the man of the Jiuzhou nunnery injected the talisman. Divine vitality was the foundation of a person, and Nangong Ko, was just a mortal. Just like how Jiang Xiu had to be careful when he cultivated the knife pellet, he had to be careful now. A fierce cold energy burst out from Nangong Ko, Er's divine vitality, and countless soft blue lights intertwined and spread out. In the blink of an eye, the fire talisman in her divine vitality started burning. But soon, the flames were frozen by the cold energy, and were extinguished in the blink of an eye. Bang! Nangong Ko's body shook, and a fierce cold light burst out from her body. The cold energy caused the surrounding walls to creak, and the potted plants on the window were quickly frozen. Nangong Ko, who was lying on the sickbed, slowly opened her eyes. Her long and curly eyelashes were still covered with frost, and the first thing she saw was Jiang Luoxia's handsome and tragic face. "You're awake." Nangong Ko, felt an indescribable weakness in her body. But when she opened her eyes and saw Jiang Luoxia, a warm current flowed in her heart. In the end he still came. Although she was happy, her eyes slowly dimmed. "Why did you save me? You might as well have let me die." Jiang Xiu said. "So you wanted to die? You should have said so earlier. You made me waste my efforts." I knew that you didn't want to save me." Jiang Xiu said. "You're being unreasonable. I'm not charging you." A smile appeared on Nangong Ko's pale face. "No one can touch me, Jiang Luoxia, the man of the Jiuzhou nunnery. I will definitely make him pay a price that he will not be able to bear." After the door was opened, the people of the Nangong family all rushed in. When they saw that Nangong Ko, was safe and sound, they were all overjoyed. At the same time, they realized that Jiang Luoxia had broken the fire talisman of the Jiuzhou nunnery. He broke it? Long Yingqing's expression changed slightly. She was a soul mutator, so she understood the core of the soul better than most people. If it were her, she would only have a 60 to 70% chance of breaking it. However, Jiang Luoxia dared to come here at the last moment to treat Nangong Ko, It was obvious that he had a 100% chance of breaking it. She had lost to him again. In the past year, she had worked hard day and night, and her strength had increased by leaps and bounds. However, in the end, she was still defeated by Jiang Xiu. The deep sense of defeat made Long Yingqing look at Jiang Xiu with mixed feelings. The man in front of her seemed to be invincible, as if she could only be conquered. All the hard work she had put in so far was just a bitter struggle. An explosive news spread from the hospital. Jiang Luoxia is here. At the moment when the 24th hour was almost up. Moreover, Jiang Luoxia had announced that he would kill the man of the Jiuzhou nunnery. The martial arts world of China was shocked. No, it should be the martial arts world of China, Japan, and even the entire East Asia were shocked. Chapter 419. When the news came, Jiuzhou nunnery's man was waiting at home for the final moment. His subordinate barged in and said, "Master Jiuzhou, Jiang Luoxia went to the hospital and issued a challenge to you. He wants to kill you." "What?" Jiuzhou nunnery's man's gaze swept over. There wasn't any fear in his eyes. It was just that the talisman fire was destroyed, which wasn't enough to prove anything. However, the disappointment in his eyes couldn't be concealed. It was like two people were in a 1,000-meter race. One person was leading by 999 meters, but was overtaken at the last moment. This feeling was absolutely devastating. The joy of leading by 999 meters had turned into a joke. She was the school belle through and through. Baka! He cursed fiercely. Jiang Luoxia did it on purpose. He purposely attacked at the last moment. This whole day and night of waiting was all Jiang Luoxia's plan. Of course, it wasn't to exhaust his physical strength. The exhaustion of a god for a day and night was negligible. However, a god's mentality wasn't necessarily stronger than a human's. At this moment, the difference in his mentality was huge. He was completely defeated. Bang! A loud sound resounded through the entire Japanese-style manor. The sound wave swept over like a huge wave, causing the entire place to tremble. Those who were frightened covered their ears in pain and rolled on the ground. Jiuzhou Nunnery's man. How dare you violate my orders and set foot in China? The sound of the river falling could be heard from afar. The whole house was shaken by the sound waves and was on the verge of collapse. It was so unbearable that it creaked. Jiang Luoxia is here. The Japanese man beside Jiuzhou Nunnery was at a loss of what to do. Boom. Before Jiang Luoxia arrived, the light of a heavenly sword slashed down from the sky. The sword was over 100 meters long and emitted a silvery white light under the sun. It was as if the sky was cut open by this sword. Jiuzhou Nunnery's expression changed drastically. Jiang Xiu's aura was too strong. It was fine when he didn't attack, but once he attacked, it was like a thunderbolt sweeping through everything. Before he could walk out of his disappointment, Jiang Xiu had already arrived. This created a huge pressure on his heart. Boom! With a loud bang, Jiuzhou Nunnery's man flew up. Suddenly, a pair of fire spirit wings spread out from his back. He flew into the distance like a big bird and instantly crossed hundreds of meters. The place where he was originally standing was left with a deep pit with traces of fire. Almost as soon as he dodged, the saber light that covered the sky fell from the sky. In front of the huge saber, the 3 to 4 meter tall building was crushed and scattered like a child's building blocks on the ground. Although the saber ray was large, the saber ray was not slow at all and followed closely behind. The man from Jiuzhou Nunnery also pulled out his saber. Jiang Xiu asked, "You also use the saber. In your eyes, what is the highest level of the saber?" The man from Jiuzhou Nunnery spread his wings and suddenly descended from the sky. The long saber in his hand slashed through the air. An invisible saber chi left the saber and shot out at high speed, forming a saber light at a speed visible to the naked eye. Man and saber as one. One saber kill. Looking at the incoming saber, Jiang Xiu laughed loudly. The saber realm that you know of can only be divided into 4. The first is to have a saber in the hand and not have a saber in the heart. The second is to have a saber in the hand and not have a saber in the heart. The third is to have a saber in the hand and not have a saber in the heart. And the highest level of the saber realm is to have no saber in the hand and not have a saber in the heart. Boom! The saber light collided and the man from Jiuzhou Nunnery's saber ray was instantly defeated. However, it was not able to withstand the saber intent. The man from Jiuzhou Nunnery said in shock, "No saber in the hand and not have a saber in the heart? Wonderful, wonderful. So this is the highest level of the saber. Eat another one of my saber." The man from Jiuzhou Nunnery put away his long saber. With a thought, he slashed out again. The saber light that appeared in an instant suddenly grew to over 100 meters long. It was abnormally sharp and its power was more than just a little bit stronger than before. Idiot! With a pung sound, the saber light was once again crushed into dust by Jiang Xiu's saber light. The saber light's power did not decrease and with a so sound, it shot towards the man from Jiuzhou Nunnery. As a god, you're actually still obsessed with the saber techniques of a mortal. Seeing the saber light shoot towards him, the man from Jiuzhou Nunnery hurriedly flapped his wings. However, what struck the man from Jiuzhou Nunnery was Jiang Xiu's words. The Jiang Xiu in front of him gave him the feeling of a god descending into the world. He was just a nouveau riche who wanted to enter the upper class. "You dare to play with me?" Jiang Xiu's eyes coldly swept over. In the next moment, he had already appeared at the same level as the man from Jiuzhou Nunnery. The man from Jiuzhou Nunnery was strong because he had awakened the Phoenix God rune. It had nothing to do with his saber cultivation. In other words, his saber cultivation was about the same as a normal martial cultivator. How could he compete with Jiang Xiu? Take another saber attack from me. Jiang Xiu slowly raised his right hand, and an indestructible force that could break through all spells slowly surged out. It was different from the saber light that Jiang Xiu had used previously. This time, the saber was surging with flames. The man from Juzhou Nunnery was shocked when he saw this. It was the first time he had seen someone who could integrate the divine power of a spell into a saber light. How did he do it? What a divine flame saber light. I've never heard of it before. Jiang Luoxia, your divine power secret skill is magnificent. You're indeed the strongest person in China. You were wrong back then. No matter how high your saber cultivation is, you can't do anything to me. Boom. A force suddenly exploded from his body. The clothes on his body were burned by the flames that burst out and fell from the sky, revealing his firm muscles. The surface of his skin was surging with the same flames as Jiang Xiu's saber light, but the color was different. At this moment, mysterious runes appeared on the face of the man from Juzhou Nunnery. From the shape, it looked like the head of a phoenix and was emitting red flames. The phoenix is the divine bird of the divine birds, the divine creature of the parasol tree. It has an unparalleled noble bloodline. Only people like me from Ri Nation can awaken such a noble bloodline. Jiang Luoxia, although you are powerful, your bloodline is too weak. Roar. He suddenly opened his mouth, and there was only darkness in his mouth. Suddenly, an extremely fierce flame shot out from his mouth like a rocket, and rushed towards Jiang Xiu. Good timing. Jiang Xiu laughed and the saber chi in his hand increased by half a point. Rip. The flame blade slashed across the sky and slashed toward the rocket launch like flames. It was difficult to be afraid of the phoenix fire, but Jiang Xiu's flame blade was like a knife cutting through water. The falling blade seemed to have slashed out a vacuum blade screen. The flames were not something the sky could withstand. The saber chi extended from Jiang Xiu to the man from Juzhou Nunnery in an instant. This time, the man from Juzhou Nunnery could no longer stay calm. The power of the phoenix fire was cut open by Jiang Xiu's saber chi. This was an existence that was far more powerful than any flame in this world. What kind of existence was Jiang Xiu's saber chi? It had been widely rumored that Jiang Luoxia's flying saber had shattered the sword chi of heaven and earth. What kind of existence was the sword chi of heaven and earth? It was the first sword chi of heaven and earth that transcended this world. It could be said to be the most powerful sword. He had always been skeptical, but at this moment, seeing Jiang Xiu's saber chi cut open the sword chi of heaven and earth, he had no choice but to believe it. Although the wind fire was not as sharp as the sword chi, it was more powerful. If it was cut open, then it was not strange that the sword chi of heaven and earth was shattered. Jiang Luoxia, do you think that's all I've got? The man from Juzhou Nunnery sneered. He formed a seal with his hand, and the fire pillar that was cut open turned into a raging fire that engulfed Jiang Xiu. Then, with Jiang Xiu as the target, the fire gathered like a tornado and was about to swallow him up. Break. Jiang Xiu said softly. He had the dragon fire. Although it was not a divine pattern, it was enough to compete with the phoenix fire. He had also stepped into the threshold of the law of heavenly thunder. With the heavenly thunder in his body, he could compete with the wind fire. Jiang Xiu, who was engulfed by the flames, waved his hands. Countless saber chi flashed out from within. The saber chi was so fast that one could only see layers of saber chi spreading out, cutting the flames into pieces. Boom. In an instant, his saber chi slashed out tens of thousands of times. Countless saber chi raged inside. Finally, when the saber chi reached its peak, it exploded with a loud bang. At this moment, countless saber chi scattered in all directions, and the sky was dazzling. Jiang Luoxia, who looked like a demon god, rushed out from inside with his long hair fluttering in the wind. Juzhou Nunnery, do you have any more moves? If you don't, then die. Crackling sounds came from around his body, and lightning flashed continuously. Chapter 420. At this moment, Juzhou Nunnery's expression turned serious. Jiang Xiu's divine runes were not visible, and he was still practicing the sword Dao that everyone was familiar with. At most, his realm was high, but he did not expect Jiang Xiu to be able to cultivate the sword Dao to such a level. It was as if he had a divine ability and cut open the phoenix fire. All right, I'll show you the power of the Juzhou family. Juzhou Nunnery's body let out a phoenix cry, and the shadow of a huge phoenix slowly appeared in the sky behind him. It covered the entire sky, and the world became pitch black. Fire Phoenix Shadow. On the ground, countless cars were rushing over, and many of them were top divinity realm martial artists from China and Japan. They could feel the strange darkness in the sky from dozens of miles away. What was more frightening was that under such darkness, the driver's car lights could not illuminate a trace of light. The lights of the tall buildings in the distance could not illuminate the sky either. The world was pitch black. What is going on? It's dark under the lights. Inside the Diaoyu restaurant, the big boss and many central authorities were still waiting to deal with the matter of the Japanese ambassador beating someone up. Not only did he beat someone up, he even arrogantly asked China to take responsibility for Juzhou Ichiro's death. The big boss was so angry that he slammed the table. The secretary outside the door hurriedly rushed in and said, "They're fighting." Everyone in the venue looked over in unison, and their expressions changed. The thing they had been waiting for finally happened. For the past 2 days, the entire upper echelon of China and the martial arts world had been waiting for this moment. The big boss was the first to react. He immediately walked out. Right now, nothing was more important than this. He ordered, "Lock onto the position and let the satellite record." "We can't see it. The place where the battle took place is pitch black." The big boss stopped in his tracks. "Is there no other way?" The secretary shook his head. "This is a battle of gods. Most of the time, the power of gods was above the wisdom of humans. In a place shrouded in darkness, even the lights could not be turned on, let alone long-distance photography." Another secretary ran over with a document in his hand. "Big boss, the Japanese sent a letter of inquiry. They said that the time limit is up, and they want us to hold a press conference immediately to admit that Juzhou Ichiro was killed. They also want an apology and compensation." The big boss frowned. "What do you think?" The big boss said coldly, "Drag it out. Wait until this duel is over. If they lost, China would have nothing to say. But if they won, China would return the humiliation that Japan had inflicted on them 100 times over." Long Yingqing floated in the sky far away, her eyes shining with a sharp light as she watched the battle in the distance. In China, perhaps only a few people could see this battle clearly. "Yingqing, who do you think will win?" Long Zizong, who was on the side, asked. The demigod from back then was now a proper deity. However, even though he had trained hard for his entire life, he was surpassed by his great-granddaughter in a single year. It's hard to say. Jiang Luoxia is an unfathomable person. No matter how strong you are, he will always be much stronger than you. As she said those words, Long Yingqing felt a sense of helplessness from the bottom of her heart. "You mean Jiang Luoxia can win?" Long Yingqing said. "I'd rather he lose. That way, I will have a chance to join forces with him to take down Juzhou Nunnery. That way, he will have a share of the profits from Japan, even if he doesn't want to." With Jiang Xiu as the center, a dark shadow suddenly began to close in on him. At the edge of the shadow, there was a crackling sound of energy. Too powerful. The driver saw the destructive power of the shadow as it closed in on him. He felt as if time and space were being compressed. Everyone who saw this scene had a strong feeling that the two people in front of them were not human. Nangong Ko stood in front of the window of the ward and whispered to herself, "Will he win?" Behind her, her mother took a coat and draped it over her body. She said softly, "Are you very worried about him? Mr. Jiang is the most powerful man in China. He will win." Yes. Although they all said that Mr. Jiang would win, no one was sure. At the Japanese embassy, the Japanese ambassador, Mr. Mitsumoto, was excited when he heard that the battle had begun. The great Juzhou Nunnery had finally made his move. He was going to avenge his son and make the Chinese pay a heavy price. It's the Fire Phoenix Shadow. That's the power of a black hole after being burned by the wind. Mr. Mitsumoto was dazzled when he saw the Fire Phoenix Shadow shrink and form a strange space vortex. He exclaimed sincerely. That's amazing. Jujio Nunnery is too powerful. The Fire Phoenix shadow had defeated countless powerful men and made Jujio Nunnery undefeated. When Jujio Nunnery used this technique for the first time in Japan, the fighter jet of the Muto family, which was defeated by Jujio Nunnery, rushed into the space vortex and disappeared. The speed of its destruction was too fast for the naked eye to follow. Moreover, the main target was Jiang Luoxia. Even a divine body would be completely destroyed by it. On the divine list, everyone had their own unique skills that made them famous. For example, the thunder god's thunder and lightning, the flying dagger under the river, the silver wing god's terrifying speed, and the man from the Jujio Nunnery was the Fire Phoenix lonely shadow. Jiang Luoxia is only at a higher level. Now, everyone could only see Jujio Nunnery's terrifying supernatural power. The second evolution of Phoenix Fire is not bad. It's indeed very powerful. Jiang Xiu sighed. This was something he did not have. His dragon fire was collected from the outside world and could not be upgraded with the increase of his level. Jujio Nunnery, on the other hand, had Phoenix Fire in his blood and could evolve as his talent awakened. The second evolution of Phoenix Fire suppressed Dragon Fire. Jiang Xiu's Dragon Fire wanted to evolve, which required the perfection of the law of heavenly fire and understanding the key to Dragon Fire's evolution. However, the problem was that he was still far away from the perfection of the law of heavenly fire. However, these people did not understand what the difference in level meant. Now the two of them were like one was a martial arts master, and the other was a rookie with a knife. Although the knife was sharp, it had no chance of winning in the face of a huge gap in strength. Unfortunately, you're too late. If it was more than a year ago, in East China, I might not be able to defeat you even if I used all my spells. At most, I would have a 50% chance of winning. But now I'm already a superior god. Do you know what a superior god is? With a boom, in the face of the rapidly shrinking shadow, Jiang Xiu's body suddenly emitted an extremely strong light. It was as if the sun had risen halfway into the sky. His entire body shone with divine light. And at this moment, a mournful song resounded in the world. Intermediate gods and superior gods were two different levels. They could even be said to be different types of existences. Superior gods could already use the power of laws. Let me show you the power of a superior god. Roar. A dragon's roar resounded through the world. An angry dragon rushed out of the darkness and soared into the sky, leaving behind a dragon god's shadow in the sky. Dragon Fire's shadow. Jujio Nunnery's man cried out involuntarily. How is this possible? Jiang Luoxia had used his ultimate move exactly the same. However, he was a phoenix, while Jiang Xiu was a dragon. Withdraw. Jiang Xiu shouted angrily. The shadow suddenly shrank toward Jujio Nunnery's man, including the ball of light that the phoenix shadow had shrunk. When the dragon shadow shrank, countless electric currents sizzled. The dragon shadow and the phoenix shadow suddenly intertwined like two planets colliding. The degree of ferocity was really enough to make the sky collapse and the earth sink. It caused the entire sky to tremble and countless electric currents to wreak havoc. The dragon fire was one level like the phoenix fire, but Jiang Xiu's realm was one level higher than his opponent's. The difference between the realms could not be made up for by the advantage of wind and fire. Although he was stronger in terms of flames, Jiang Xiu's real strength was not just a little bit stronger than his. Break. Amidst the angry shout, the phoenix shadow suddenly exploded and was destroyed like a planet. However, the dragon shadow only paused for a moment before it shrank toward Jujio Nunnery's man even more rapidly. The more it shrank, the stronger it became, and the stronger the pressure inside it became. No, it's impossible. Jujio Nunnery's man screamed in horror. The countless electric currents in the shadow still pierced through him. His whole body was attacked by countless electric currents, and his whole body turned silver white. You can't win against me. The dragon shadow kept shrinking. From a radius of dozens of miles, it shrank to a radius of 2 meters, then 1 meter. At this time, his whole body was being squeezed until it began to shrink. He was only holding on with the power in his body. Boom. When his divine body shrank to 0.5 meter, it finally exploded. At the same time, The dragon shadow ball also exploded. Boom, boom, boom. The power of the explosion in the sky was something that even nuclear weapons could not compare to. The entire sky was filled with a strong white light behind the shadow, illuminating the entire imperial capital. Did he win? On the Jiaoyu platform, a strong light suddenly appeared in the sky. Chapter 421. On the Jiaoyu platform, all the big bosses were extremely nervous. Seeing the amount of light in the sky, the big boss immediately turned back and asked, "Did you get it?" After the secretary asked, he nodded and said, "Yes." At the moment of the explosion, at the moment when the sky brightened, the camera that had been running all this time had recorded it. He immediately projected the video onto the big screen. The big boss couldn't wait to see it. He asked, "Who won?" He didn't care about the situation of the battle. He wanted the result. The result was everything. The secretary didn't know. Even the control panel didn't know what was going on. The big screen finally lit up from the darkness. It felt a little like watching a movie with white cloth in the village when he was young. At the moment of the explosion, the light was very bright. It was hard to see clearly, but everyone's eyes widened. This matter concerned the trend of the entire Hua nation. The lonely phoenix flame shadow was only a unique formation in this world. This was because the space in this world couldn't withstand the burning of wind and fire. That was why the so-called black hole was formed. With such a heaven-defying force and the support of Jiang Xiu's magical power, the man from Juzhou Nunnery couldn't resist at all, and was destroyed. The man from Juzhou Nunnery's flesh and blood exploded into pieces. Yes, the man from Juzhou Nunnery's body exploded, right? The big boss didn't dare to be sure. However, when the light gradually dissipated and he saw Jiang Luoxia standing in the sky with his long hair dancing in the wind, he was even more certain. The crowd that rushed to watch the battle was completely shocked. Below, an old man from the Hua Nation martial arts world trembled with tears running down his face. "God, this is a real God. He can go to heaven and earth and play with the sun, moon, and stars. From today onwards, Mr. Jiang will say that he's the most powerful person in the world. Who dares to disagree with him? Thunder God, if you don't agree, come and fight him," someone on the side said excitedly. Hua Nation is so lucky to have this person. Looking at Jiang Xiu in the sky with his long hair fluttering in the wind, he was like a god or a devil. His eyes lit up and he was so excited that he could not control himself. He won again, he won again. He wished he could be Jiang Luoxia, the Jiang Luoxia who ruled the world. "Did you win?" Long Yingqing tried her best to control her emotions. She found that she was so excited that she couldn't control herself, just like a little fan. However, she was also a god. She wasn't much worse than him. At most, there was only a small gap. She felt that this was very embarrassing. But she was so excited that she couldn't control herself. "He's too strong. Who can withstand this level of power? Mr. Jiang is more than just a little bit stronger than he was back then. The strong will always be the strong. No matter what happens to this world, as long as the people's hearts don't change, his strong ambition will always let him rule the world." Long Zizong also sighed in amazement. The secretary received a call and said, he won. Mr. Jiang won. We won. All right. The big boss yelled and slammed the table. He had been holding back his anger for a long time. Shouldn't Ri Nation give them an explanation? Then we'll give him an explanation. Inform the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to hold a press conference. The big boss looked at Jiang Xiu, who was standing in the air on the screen. His long hair fluttered like flames on the top of his head. His eyes swept across the world, and he sighed from the bottom of his heart. Descending from the 9 mysteries to wash the sky, 1,000 years of work. Even if you don't know where you are still outstanding. On the other hand, the Ri Nation people were stunned as if they had lost their parents. Master Juzhou lost? No, that's impossible. The Ri Nation people relied more on the strong. The defeat of Juzhou and caused them to lose their spiritual support, as if their faith had collapsed. How can Master Juzhou die like this? It doesn't make sense. Master Juzhou is invincible, unparalleled, and undefeated. Impossible. When the news reached the Ri Nation embassy, Mitsumoto screamed like a madman. Jujio's defeat shattered his arrogant heart. It turned his previous provocation into an act of suicide. Hua Nation would not give up so easily. Mr. Ambassador, Hua Nation is hosting a press conference. They want us to attend and give us an explanation. The Re Nation people had been urging them for an entire day. However, when the press conference was held, it was like bad news. It made things worse and almost caused them to break down. Hua Nation, what's the meaning of this? At that moment someone shouted from outside. Oh no, Mr. Ambassador, the Hua Nation people outside have rushed in. They want to arrest the criminal who beat up the Hua Nation diplomat. What? Mitsumoto widened his eyes in shock. He had beaten up Director Wang at the airport because of Jujio Ichiro's death. The law enforcement officers had rushed in and pinned him down. Let go of me, let go of me. Do you know who I am? I'm the Re Nation ambassador to China. How dare you make a fuss? You beat up a Hua Nation diplomat in public. Do you know what crime it is? The death penalty. Mitsumoto's head exploded. He shouted. No, I'm from Re Nation and I'm the Re Nation ambassador. You have no right to punish me. Even if I've committed a crime, you can only send me back to Re Nation. How dare you kill me in public? Aren't you afraid of war between the two nations? Why are you talking to him? Take him away. You won't dare to kill me, you won't dare to kill me. Mitsumoto shouted. Hua Nation had always been very gentle when it came to matters like this. They were always very careful when it came to diplomacy. He did not believe that Hua Nation would dare to do this. In the sky, Jiang Luoxia looked at the light sand falling from the sky and let out a soft sound of surprise. This light sand was abnormal. It was more like the energy after a spell was cast, and not the residual energy after a corpse exploded. I almost forgot. In the boundless horizon, a drop of bright red blood light flew into the distance under the illumination of the sun. Its speed was frightening, as if it was fleeing with spirit chi. Meanwhile, in the Jujio family's headquarters in Tokyo, Japan, there was a statue placed on top of it. It was tied up with a red string, and it was struggling in fear. On the back of the statue, there was a talisman with the name of the Jujio nunnery and his birth characters written on it. You can't possibly understand this, and you can't possibly leave behind a remnant soul in Re Nation. You must have awakened your innate talent and pride into the secrets of the divine phoenix rune. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with murderous intent. You ignored my warning and stepped into Hua Nation. You even hurt Ko? Do you still think you can live in this world? I, Jiang Luoxia, will never return an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. Even if I have to go to heaven or to hell, I will kill your Jujio family. Boom. Jiang Xiu's entire body shot towards the distance, his speed as fast as lightning. What's wrong? Something's not right. Long Yingqing suddenly saw Jiang Xiu heading east at an extremely fast speed, as if he was chasing after something. She couldn't help but ponder. Could it be that the Jujio nunnery is still alive? Long Zizong's eyebrows twitched and his face turned green. Don't you know Mr. Jiang's methods? If the Jujio nunnery dares to provoke him, Mr. Jiang will definitely kill them all. Speaking of this, he couldn't help but gasp. The Ji family, the Zhuge family, and the Sword Palace of Shishu were all killed. Then we have to hurry to Re Nation. Fly there like this. Long Yingqing said. He's not afraid of fatigue. My body isn't as strong as his. Let's take a plane. Flying at full speed was about the same as running. This kind of consumption was fine for a short distance, but crossing the strait like this was like running a marathon. Long Yingqing did not want to do this. There's no doubt that Mr. Jiang is a superior god, right? Long Yingqing nodded and said, yes, I can feel that the Jujio nunnery's phoenix fire is stronger, but he still lost. It can only be that Jiang Xiu's level is higher than the Jujio nunnery's. Yes, Jiang Luoxia seems to have flown directly to Re Nation. Seeing this scene, the martial cultivators present all cried out. Besides Jiang Luoxia's fierce reputation, everyone knew that this trip to Re Nation was really going to make them sweat for the Re Nation people. Boss, we've received the latest news. Jiang Luoxia went directly to Re Nation. He didn't take a plane. He flew there directly. Everyone present felt anger. Jiang Luoxia's anger. If it wasn't for his anger, he wouldn't be in such a hurry. What should we do? Will it cause diplomatic trouble? Hearing this, the boss laughed loudly and looked at the middle-aged secretary mockingly. Diplomatic trouble? Ha ha ha. Chapter 422. Zhu Jianunan's defeat was not just a personal defeat. Before the world changed, all countries were competing with each other in terms of armaments. They had invested a lot of money and resources, and no one was willing to fall behind. If they fell behind, they would be beaten. Jiang Xiu and Zhu Jianunan now represented the highest combat power of each country. They had the most advanced and powerful weapons. And this was definitely a battle of the highest level. The winner was determined, and it was equivalent to determining who was stronger and who was weaker. Diplomatic trouble? There was a saying that a weak country had no diplomatic relations. Under such circumstances, if Japan dared to make trouble, Hua Nation would teach them a lesson. They would have to bear the consequences. The big boss was definitely domineering. At the press conference, the press officer spoke with fervor and assurance. He sternly reprimanded the Japanese ambassador for hitting people and sentenced him to death. As soon as he finished speaking, countless foreign reporters took out their cameras and snapped, most of them from Smith Barney. The Japanese reporters present were already in an uproar, but no one dared to object. The news had already spread. Japan was completely open to the news of the god's manifestation. Zhu Jianunan was a god that almost the entire country knew. His defeat was equivalent to Japan's defeat. What awaited them was the fury of Hua Nation. The Hua Nation reporters were extremely excited. Since the last century, although World War II was far away, history would not be drowned out. This resentment had been suppressed in the hearts of the Hua Nation generation after generation. It was too sullen to endure. And now, they finally had a chance to vent this resentment. Did the Japanese dare to say that they were stronger than the Hua Nation? Jiang Luoxia had already proven everything. Mr. Press Officer, it is said that the strongest man in Hua Nation, Jiang Luoxia, has already set off for Japan. According to our understanding, Mr. Zhang's way of dealing with his enemies. The old Russian felt his scalp tingle at the mention of this. In Europe and America, human rights were paramount. It was hard to imagine that Jiang Xiu would slaughter an entire family. He's ruthless. Will he do the same thing in Japan? You should ask Mr. Jiang Luoxia this question, not me. The Russian said again. Then if Jiang Luoxia really did such a thing, how will Hua Nation face the public? We don't answer hypothetical questions. Another American reporter said. I hope that China will restrain their own divine-level experts, just like how we do in America. We can't let them kill ordinary people as they wish. As a matter of fact, their massacres had reached an astonishing level and they had wantonly launched civil wars. It was only recently that things had calmed down. These journalists, who claimed to be from a developed country, tried to pressure Jiang Xiu to give up on his trip to Japan. That's right. You should immediately let Jiang Luoxia return to his country. He shouldn't have set foot on Japanese soil without our permission. The Hua Nation had always been a maverick existence. It had a long and glorious history, but it had pretended that the Hua Nation had been enslaved by foreign races for more than 100 years. That was the most humiliating 100 years. It showed the Europeans and Americans the ugliest and most incompetent Hua Nation. This deep-rooted impression made them look down on the Hua Nation from the bottom of their hearts. They would always judge the Hua Nation from the moral high ground, thinking that they were always right and were the standard. If you can persuade him to come back, the Hua authorities will not have any objections. The reporters from various countries were speechless. They couldn't get in touch with Jiang Luoxia. Even if they could, who would dare to persuade a divine-level expert, let alone a divine-level expert who loved to kill? It was said that this person was a tyrant. He wasn't ranked first on the divine ranking list, but his desire to kill was unparalleled. He might even kill you with a single strike. This is what the Hua authorities should do. The only thing they could do was to put pressure on the Hua government and force them to step in. They were giants in words and villains in action. Okay, today's press conference will focus on the Japanese ambassador's assault. We won't answer any other questions today. Nangongmu walked into the first military district hospital. He sighed when he saw Nangong Ko, standing by the window. He didn't know whether it was good or bad for the Nangong family, but he knew that Nangong Ko, would like to hear it. It's over. He won. Nangong Ko lowered her eyelids and said softly, "Really?" He couldn't tell whether she was happy or sad. It was as if she wasn't moved by the news. She was in a bad mood. Even Nangong Mu couldn't tell what was going on with her reaction. "You don't seem very happy." Nangong Ko squeezed out a smile and said, "No, I won this duel. It's better than losing." Of course. The whole Hua nation is in an uproar now. Mr. Jiang has become a god because of this duel. Everyone is saying that he did a good job. Nangong Mu didn't care about these things. He wasn't an ordinary person. He was more concerned about the future of the Nangong family after they lost the Jujio family. "Mr. Jiang cares about you a lot." Ko smiled and said, "We're just ordinary friends. It was Jujio Ichiro who misunderstood us. The man from Jujio Nunnery also misunderstood us. He only came to save me because he was forced to do so." Nangong Mu was confused by Nangong Ko's words. Did they really misunderstand us? Since Jiang Luoxia was so powerful, he didn't have to wait until the last moment to save me. "Are you sure there's nothing going on between you?" Nangong Ko smiled. Her pale face looked even more beautiful because of her smile. "Actually, you're not unrelated to him. If the Jiang family hadn't been destroyed by him, you would have been engaged." Nangong Mu tried to observe Nangong Ko's expression, but she didn't show any emotion. The Nangong family needs to find someone to cooperate with. If we can get Mr. Jiang's support. There are too many people competing with us. Also, according to what I know, Jiang Xiu never cares about these things. His ambition doesn't lie in this, so he won't make an exception for us. Nangong Ko, didn't know whether Jiang Xiu would agree to her request, but she didn't want to have anything to do with Jiang Xiu. She didn't want to have anything to do with Jiang Xiu, because it would make her feel inferior to Jiang Xiu. Therefore, she stopped Nangong Mu with her words. Alas! Nangong Mu sighed. The whole country was celebrating, but only the Nangong family was sighing. "Mr. Jiang, does it really have nothing to do with you?" Nangong Ko looked out of the window. She didn't want to answer. "Mr. Jiang went to our nation. He seems to be very angry." Nangong Ko said, "He didn't do it because of me. Grandpa, I'm a little tired." She was indeed very tired. She felt weak the moment she woke up, but she forced herself to wait for the news for so long. Jujio Nunan was the biggest threat to him. Since he had already been killed, there shouldn't be anyone who could threaten Jiang Xiu in this trip to Ri Nation. This kind of news was limited to the higher-ups. Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling, who were far away in Jiangnan, didn't even know about it. Wang Xintong would try her best to hide this kind of thing. In fact, Wang Xintong would try her best not to meet Jiang Xiu's parents. Jujio Nunan's essence blood rushed to his remnant soul. Although it was just a drop of essence blood, it consumed much less energy and flew at an astonishing speed. Just like a soul, the speed at which the soul threads escaped was very fast. It was almost as fast as the speed of light. Although the essence blood couldn't reach that speed, it was still much bigger than a large body. Also, Jiang Xiu couldn't pinpoint the position of the essence blood. He could only guess that the essence blood was going to return to his soul. Jujio Nunan wouldn't leave his remnant soul outside of our nation. He would usually leave it at home. His body suddenly fell into a crowded city. "I'm in our nation." The our nation in front of him was very different from what he remembered. It was similar to the Heian era in the history of our nation. There were not only people on the streets, but also beasts and demons. The billboards on the roadside were all in our nation's language. Jujio Nunan. The fusion of soul and blood and rebirth from the ashes required a process, and it wouldn't be short. It would take a few months or even a year, or even longer. He stopped a young girl from our nation. The girl was very excited when she saw Jiang Xiu was as handsome as a god. She couldn't stop talking. Jiang Xiu asked, "Do you know where the Jujio Nunan is?" Chapter 423. Hearing Jiang Xiu speak in English, The girl was a little disappointed. This meant that Jiang Xiu wasn't a Re-Nation citizen. However, she still replied in English. Are you asking about the Juzhou Shrine? Are you here for a vacation? Jiang Xiu said, Vacation? You can say that. The girl said, From your accent, you seem to be Chinese. However, I think you've come to the wrong place. The Juzhou Shrine is in the southern district of Tokyo. This is the western district. After the world changed, the Re-Nation people worshipped ghosts and gods even more. Shrines could be seen everywhere. Whenever they encountered strange beasts or strange things, they would go to the shrines. The Juzhou Shrine was a top-notch existence. Not only did the people rely on it, but the government also relied on it. It had become a famous tourist destination in Re-Nation. Okay, thank you, the girl said. Do you want me to take you there? I can teach you how to take the subway. Jiang Xiu shook his head and refused. He could reach the southern district of Tokyo quickly. Since the Juzhou Shrine was such a famous shrine, he could probably find it by asking a few people there. No need, thank you. The girl was a little disappointed, but she couldn't force him. She took out her phone and took a photo with Jiang Xiu as a souvenir. Such a handsome boy. Showing off to her sisters was also a beautiful thing. After Jiang Xiu arrived at the southern district of Tokyo, he asked a few people there. The Juzhou Shrine was on the famous Mount Akixiu in Re-Nation. Mount Akixiu was a famous tourist attraction. It happened to be spring, so many tourists came and went. When Jiang Xiu arrived at the foot of the mountain, he heard many people speaking Chinese. He glanced around and saw a group of familiar figures. One of them was wearing a pair of sunglasses and a hat that couldn't hide her beauty. However, she was evasive, as if afraid that others would notice her. It felt like she was a celebrity. Many Chinese celebrities, because they didn't have much freedom in the country, especially liked to travel to non-Chinese areas. Therefore, paparazzi often took pictures of a certain person meeting a certain person on the streets of Re-Nation, or North Korea. Jiang Xiu didn't care, but the fully armed girl's eyes were fixed on Jiang Xiu. You. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was in a deified state. She looked at Jiang Xiu and thought he looked familiar, but she wasn't 100% sure. You Jiang Xiu? The more she looked at it, the more she felt that it was her. She took off her sunglasses and revealed a beautiful face. It was actually Xiao Xuetong. Xiao Xuetong had seen Jiang Xiu's deified state when he was a demigod, but compared to his current state, there was still a difference. After not seeing her for more than 3 years, she had become more mature and more stylish. However, she was still full of youthful charm. What a coincidence. It's really you. Why are you in Re-Nation? Xiao Xuetong seemed to be very excited. The staff on the side was a little confused. When did our Xiao become so enthusiastic about boys? She actually took the initiative to strike up a conversation. I have something to do. Why are you here? Didn't you say you were in Xiangjiang? It turned out that Xiao Xuetong was going to hold a concert here. Re-Nation had more or less recovered from the turmoil after the upheaval. Now that everything was on the right track, Xiao Xuetong's company also valued the market here and developed it for a while. The results were very good, so they decided to hold a concert while the iron was hot. Xiao Xuetong and her group of more than 10 people, all of whom seemed to be staff, came here to have fun before the concert started. You're going to Mount Akixiu too? Jiang Xiu's eyes were a little cold. I advise you not to go up. Go back to where you came from. It's not safe here. Of course, Xiao Xuetong believed Jiang Xiu's words. However, there was a young man beside her. Ever since Jiang Xiu appeared and Xiao Xuetong was so enthusiastic towards him, he felt very unhappy in his heart. Xiao, who is this person? A Beijing accent came out of his mouth. He was from Beijing. Xiao Xuetong introduced, this is my future development partner. His surname is Qin and his name is Qin Ziyuan. He is very familiar with people in Japan and has a very strong relationship with the Juzhou family. This is Jiang Xiu. She hesitated for a moment and felt that it was better not to expose Jiang Xiu's identity. Strong relationship with the Juzhou family? Jiang Xiu's eyes were full of coldness. What kind of relationship? Qin Ziyuan was even more unhappy with Jiang Xiu. Damn it, a pretty boy dares to act like a big boss in front of me. It's not a big deal. My cousin is from China's Nangong family. Do you know the Nangong family? Emperor Wa Biotech. My grandfather, Nangong Mu, is a central substitute. The Nangong family and the Juzhou family are connected by marriage. What do you think my relationship with the Juzhou family is? If it was someone else, they would probably be paralyzed with fear after hearing Qin Ziyuan's background. However, Jiang Xiu was still indifferent. Your surname is Qin, and you're a relative of the Nangong family. What's your relationship with Qin Weiping? Qin Ziyuan's face changed. You know my dad, Jiang Xiu said. So it's his son. Qin Weiping was the boss of Wanji Real Estate. He transferred Jiang Xiu's existing assets to the Wang family in Jiangnan. The Wang family even forced Jiang Xiu to visit them. In the blink of an eye, many years had passed. Your dad still owes me 100 million. Qin Ziyuan laughed. What a joke. My Qin family owes you money, 100 million? It's best that you're here. You can collect the debt while you're at it. If it weren't for Nangong Ko, Jiang Xiu wouldn't have let Qin Weiping off so easily. However, he didn't expect the Qin family to be so close to the Juzhou family. It was no wonder that the Nangong family and the Juzhou family had deep strategic cooperation. The Qin family had no reason not to use this relationship to develop their business in Ri Nation. It was indeed a good project to get Xiao Xuetong to develop the entertainment industry in Ri Nation. Who are you? How dare you talk nonsense here? At this time, the people who were traveling with them were ready. We've prepared everything we need to buy on the mountain. We can go up now. They had to prepare a lot of things to worship the gods on the mountain. Since it was expensive on the mountain, they bought them at the foot of the mountain. This was the experience they had gained from traveling in Hua Nation. Jiang Xiu laughed coldly. He didn't have time to deal with him right now. He turned to Xiao Xuetong and said, "It's best if you don't go up. You can't worship the gods even if you go up." Xiao Xuetong was about to nod when Qin Ziyuan couldn't take it anymore and said angrily, "Who do you think you are? You're telling us not to go up? Even if the Juzhou shrine is closed for the day, I can make him open the door and let us in." His Qin family had strong connections in Ri Nation. If he wanted to promote a celebrity, he had many choices. Of course, he chose Xiao Xuetong for another reason. This young Master Qin was interested in Xiao Xuetong. Jiang Xiu glanced at him and said, "I'll come and get that 100 million back from you." After that, Jiang Xiu ignored Qin Ziyuan and walked up the stairs to the top of the mountain. Hey, Qin Ziyuan was incomparably angry, but he didn't want to lose face in front of Xiao Xuetong. He said with an ashen face, "Xiao Xiao, who is this grandson? How can he be so arrogant?" Xiao Xuetong looked at Jiang Xiu's back as he left. That man was too far away from her. Before, she didn't have a deep understanding of the three words Mr. Jiang, but over the past year, she deeply felt that this was a person who could cover the sky with one hand in Jiangnan, and even in China. You can't afford to offend him. Let's go. Don't go up. Ha! Qin Ziyuan found it harder to accept being looked down on by the woman he loved than Jiang Xiu looking down on him. He felt an uncontrollable anger rush to his head, and all the hair on his body stood on end. What kind of joke is this, Xiao Xiao? We've already come this far. I can let you see the Juzhou family's true top Yinyang master, and bless your acting career. How can we give up just because of one sentence from him? The staff on the side also said, "That's right, Xiao Xiao. We've already come this far. After today, we won't have any more time. It's not easy to come to Ri Nation. We can't just go back like this." Xiao Xuetong wasn't very reconciled. After all, they had already come to the foot of the mountain. But since Jiang Xiu had spoken, there must be a reason. Since he said so, there might be danger up there. Even if there's danger, isn't he your friend? Will he hurt you? Xiao Xuetong shook her head. Of course, Jiang Xiu wouldn't hurt her. Then it's fine. He won't hurt you, and the Juzhou family won't hurt you either. What's there to be afraid of? Let's go up the mountain. I want to see if he dares to be so arrogant when he reaches the Juzhou shrine. Xiao Xuetong's heart was basically moved. In fact, she was very eager to spend more time with Jiang Xiu. In addition, she was also very curious. Why did Jiang Xiu come here? If that's the case, then fine. But let's walk slowly. Don't let him see us. Qin Ziyuan's heart was filled with anger. Was it necessary to care so much about him? Chapter 424. On the mountain of Jujiu Shrine, a drop of essence blood fell into the flames of a burning puppet. It let out a shrill, angry, and pained howl. Hearing that sound made one's hair stand on end. Lord Jujiu's puppet has been activated. What's going on? The expressions of the onmyojis in Jujiu Shrine all changed. Those who were cultivating stared at the flames in horror. The remnant soul in the flames struggled and screamed. Gradually, its face became clearer and clearer. It was a terrifying, ferocious face. The onmyojis all widened their eyes in horror. Ah! The remnant soul in the flames let out a shrill cry and rushed over. The flames danced wildly in the shrine. It was filled with pain and anger. Lord Jujiu, please calm down. They thought that they had angered a god. They knelt on the ground and kowtowed with all their might. They were so frightened that their bodies trembled. Damn Jiang Luoxia. You destroyed me. And all of you, you're all trash. Today, sacrifice your lives for me to enjoy. Ha ha ha. There was no time to react. The flames rushed over, and the black smoke only touched the remnant soul a little. The remnant soul fell to the ground. The traditional onmyojis hunting clothes and the tall black hat fell to the ground. His entire body was devoured by the flames, leaving only a skeleton. Ah! Seeing this scene, the onmyojis were all scared out of their wits. Run! The man from Jujiu Shrine didn't let them escape. A gust of demonic wind blew over, and the doors and windows were all closed. Ah! The Yin-Yang masters had nowhere to go. They could only scream in terror and let out miserable cries. Not good, Lord Jujiu is angry. An old man hurried over from the outer hall. He saw many onmyojis running away. Their eyes were filled with fear, as if they had seen a ghost. He grabbed one of them and slapped him. His eyes were even wider than the other person's. He scolded. What are you panicking for? This is Jujiu Shrine, the most sacred place in Japan. That person knelt down. Great onmyoji Lord Jujiu's puppet is angry. It kills everyone it sees. The 7 onmyoji in the shrine were all killed by it. The old man was deep in thought. The remnant soul of Lord Jujiu was inside the divine doll, so there was no reason for it to go out of control. He recalled that the man from Jujiu Nunnery had gone to China to test Jiang Luoxia. Could something have happened? His expression changed immediately. Come with me. The onmyoji who followed him stepped on the clean wooden planks and quickly made their way to the shrine. There were no longer any screams inside, but the windows and doors were all stained with blood. There was a dark image of a person madly chewing on a corpse. Even the old man's face couldn't help but turn pale. Lord Jujiu. The door was pushed open, and a disgusting smell of blood rushed out from inside. It was a person who looked as ferocious as a demon, as if he had just climbed out from hell. My lord, is that enough? Do you want to catch a few more for you? The man from Jujiu Nunnery slowly turned around. His face was exactly the same as before, but the other half of his face was covered in blood and flesh. My lord, what happened? The man from Jujiu Nunnery was covered in black flames. He was in great pain. The phoenix fire was constantly burning his blood. Blood was connected to the soul, and burning the blood was burning the soul. The pain was unimaginable. Jiang Luoxia, he destroyed my physical body. He didn't say that he had been defeated, because he refused to admit defeat. He refused to admit that he had been reborn. This was the power of his bloodline. As long as he didn't die, he would never admit defeat. The old man was shocked when he heard this. He vaguely remembered that the man from the Jujiu Nunnery was in high spirits when he fought Silver Wing to a draw. He could even fight Silver Wing to a draw, so how could he lose so miserably to Jiang Luo? Are the gods of China really that powerful? In the current East Asia, there was a saying that the strongest ruler of the New World was definitely not Europe or America. It could only appear in the mysterious East, the land known as China. I'm going to tear him apart. The man from Jujiu Nunnery roared in anger. His face contorted as his body was engulfed in raging flames. The body that he had painstakingly reformed was once again burned to ashes. The old man turned around and ordered, "Close the shrine. No more worshippers will be accepted today." "Yes, my lord." A middle-aged onmyoji on the side said. "I heard that Jiang Luoxia is a vicious and merciless person. He doesn't leave any leeway for his opponents or himself. Those who go against him are all killed." Grand onmyoji, "Will he come to Re-Nation to kill them?" "Humph." The old man snorted coldly. "He wouldn't dare do anything to us even if he had 10 times the courage. However, we have to be careful. Immediately put pressure on China. Wait, let's have America Barney step in. The only one Jiang Luoxia is afraid of is the God of Thunder. We have to get him to step in." Yes. America Barney had always considered itself the leader of the world and wanted to interfere with everyone's business, especially China. He was very wary of China and constantly controlled the surrounding areas to cause trouble for China. Re-Nation was his best weapon to control China. If Re-Nation was unlucky, America Barney would lose their best weapon to deal with China. This was something that America Barney did not want to see. Therefore, under such circumstances, the God of Thunder had to step in to intimidate Jiang Luoxia. The old man's judgment was very accurate. When the Japanese government contacted America Barney had already reacted quickly. At that time, before the news had spread, America Barney had already reacted quickly. America Barney had contacted the Chinese authorities and strongly condemned Jiang Xiu for entering Re-Nation territory without a Re-Nation visa to kill the man from Juzhou Nunnery. Is this the Juzhou shrine? The worshippers inside were all chased out. The Re-Nation people were very disciplined and did not panic. They left in an orderly manner. Two onmyojis bowed and apologized to the worshippers at the door. The door of the shrine was then closed. Why is it closed? At this time, Jiang Xiu was standing at the entrance of the shrine. He was greeted by a stream of people descending the mountain. Although there were many people, there was no noise at all. Jiang Xiu's gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the dense crowd and reach the depths of the shrine. He was still not sure if the man from Juzhou Nunnery would escape here. With such a large area, his divine sense already had the ability to explore, especially with the existence of the Phoenix Fire. It should have a unique feeling under his divine sense. He let his divine sense spread out. It was very weak and very taxing on his mind. "Hey, isn't this the arrogant one? Why are you standing at the entrance? Can't you go in?" Qin Ziyuan and the others came to the entrance of the shrine and saw Jiang Xiu. He had heard that the shrine was closed when he came up, but he insisted on coming. There was no other reason. He said that even if the Juzhou shrine was closed, he could still enter. He wanted to slap Jiang Xiu in the face and prove to Xiao Xuedong his ability in Re-Nation. He could enter the most powerful shrine in Re-Nation freely. Jiang Xiu turned a deaf ear. If he wanted to search for the man from Juzhou Nunnery, who only had a drop of essence blood left, he had to focus his divine sense. Acting like a boss. Qin Ziyuan saw Xiao Xuedong come up and said, "Xiao Xiao, your powerful friend can't go in. Should we leave him alone or bring him in?" Xiao Xuedong did not expect Jiang Xiu to still be standing at the entrance. She looked a little embarrassed and wanted to explain to Jiang Xiu. But she saw that Jiang Xiu's eyes were as deep as a bottomless abyss. It was as if his soul had left his body. "Jiang Xiu, Jiang Xiu." Jiang Xiu did not respond to him. At that moment, Jiang Xiu's phone rang. His thoughts were interrupted. He took out his phone and picked it up. It was an overseas call from Wang Xintong. "Where are you?" "I'm at the entrance. If I'm not mistaken, I'm inside." Wang Xintong said. "Does Jiaoyu Island want you to give up?" "Give up?" Jiang Xiu sneered. "In this world, anyone and anything could change his mind." Wang Xintong said. "Yes. It's not Jiaoyu Island's own opinion, but they have no choice. Many European countries are pressuring us. I know you won't care about this, but God of Thunder has spoken. He said that if you dare to touch Juzhou Nunnery in Re-Nation, he will come to Hua Nation tomorrow. Is that so? Then let him try." Chapter 425. Qin Ziyuan picked up the phone with Jiang Xiao, who knew if he was faking it or not, but he laughed coldly and looked at her with disdain. Are you still pretending? You can't even get through the door. Xiao Xueqing shook her head and thought to herself. You're looking for trouble, aren't you? You're provoking Mr. Jiang again and again. She regretted telling him about Jiang Xiao's identity, but if she did, this group of people would probably jump in fright again. If someone didn't have eyes and spread the news, it would become a tabloid and might anger Jiang Xiao again. A staff member on the side said, Young Master Qin, it's really closed. Can we still go in? Qin Ziyuan said, Remove the word kin for me. In Ri Nation, there's no place that I, Young Master Qin, don't dare to go. And there's no place that I, Young Master Qin, can't go. After speaking, he walked towards the closed door and started chatting with the two Yin-Yang masters at the door. He was very fluent, and those who didn't know would think he was Ri Nation. After exchanging a few simple words, he turned around and waved at Xiao Xuedong and the others. Let's go, we can go in. The staff member was excited. Young Master Qin, you're too awesome. This is the rhythm of booking the entire shrine. The group of people picked up their things and ran over in high spirits. Xiao Xuetong looked at Jiang Xiao and saw that she was on the phone. Her colleagues had all gone over, so she pointed at her and went over as well. If Jiang Xiao wanted to go in, then there was no place in the world that he didn't dare to go. After they successfully entered, the Juzhou Shrine arranged for people to receive them. After all, they were the young master of the Qin family, so they were considered esteemed guests of the Juzhou family. Of course, only normal Yin-Yang masters came to receive them, not great Yin-Yang masters. Everyone this way please. They couldn't worship the main god in the main hall. Since these Chinese people had never been here before, they could just find a side hall and let them worship it. After all, he was the young master of the Nangong family. It's so quiet here. There's a sense of holiness. Along the way, they saw wooden houses, streams, green bamboos, and Shinto shrine decorations that were very unique to Japan. The group of people who came in for sightseeing couldn't help but be amazed, especially since the entire shrine was only receiving them. It was indescribably relaxed and comfortable. Hey! An angry voice suddenly sounded. An old man stood in front of the wooden house and stared at the group of Chinese people who had appeared. His face was cold and pale. The Yin-Yang master hurriedly walked over and knelt on the ground. Grand Yin-Yang master, this is the grandson of the Nangong family. He has brought a few friends. Idiot, do you think anyone can come in if I don't tell them? But he is Nangong. In the past, the Nangong family had cooperated with the Juzhou family, and the people of the Nangong family were treated as VIPs. This Yin-Yang master didn't know that the cooperation between the Juzhou family and the Nangong family had ended, but perhaps it was too early to say that it had ended. Quickly finish your worship and leave. If he directly kicked them out, it would be too disrespectful to the Nangong family. The great Yin-Yang master felt that it was better to give them some face. After all, there would still be opportunities to cooperate in the future. Moreover, Lord Juzhou's condition seemed to have stabilized. Hi. Qin Ziyuan bowed slightly to the great Yin-Yang master. Nangong Ziyuan greets the great Yin-Yang master. The great Yin-Yang master nodded in return. Excuse me. Qin Ziyuan didn't dare to ask the great Yin-Yang master to accompany him. After all, he was only a junior and didn't have the qualifications. However, when he turned his head, he saw a man walking over with a majestic gait. The bamboos and streams beside him seemed to be tumbling because of his appearance. How did you get in? Jiang Xiao said calmly. The door is just over there. I wanted to come in, so I came in. Qin Ziyuan said. Do you have any manners? This is a private place. If you want to come in, you have to get permission from the owner. You came in without permission. That's trespassing. They have the right to arrest you. Jiang Xiao gave a cold laugh. Arrest me? The great Yin-Yang master stared at Jiang Xiao. He was different from Qin Ziyuan. He had a Yin-Yang cultivation, and the Fa Li in his body wasn't weak. Moreover, he had lived here for far too long and was familiar with everything here. He keenly noticed that after Jiang Xiao came in, the water flow and air had clearly changed. Sir, you're not a normal person. There were many divine discoverers now, but most divine discoverers only changed their own strength and body. Those who could affect the environment around them were all top-notch experts. And those who could silently change things like this were the experts among the experts. Who exactly are you? Jiang Xiu's eyes were indifferent as he said, a debt collector. That's enough. Qin Ziyuan said angrily. You said my Qin family owes you 100 million. What proof do you have? Did my dad write you an IOU? If not, then shut up. If you dare to talk nonsense again, don't blame me for not giving Xiao face and suing you for slander. As long as I want, I can make you stay in Re Nation for the rest of your life. Do you believe me? Jiang Xiu said. Don't be anxious. I'll settle things with him first. Jiang Xiu's gaze didn't shift at all. His gaze passed through the old man and looked at the shrine behind him. Me. The great Yin-Yang master said. I don't think I know you. Who exactly are you? Jiang Xiu said calmly. My surname is Jiang. Jiang. The great Yin-Yang master was stunned, but then his pupils shrank. He looked at Jiang Xiu in disbelief. His fingers trembled as he said in fear. You. The great Yin-Yang master had never been so afraid before. He was an elder of the Juzhou family. Although the Juzhou family had declined before Juzhou Nunan's appearance, they were still a family of Yin-Yang masters. Even in small places, they were still respected. After the Juzhou family rose to power, they owned the largest shrine in Re Nation and carried the title of Great Yin-Yang Master. They had all the pride and glory. But now, all of this was useless in front of the man in front of him. I'm here to collect debts. You should have heard of the consequences of going against me. The Grand Onmyoji's face was already pale, and cold sweat had already appeared on his forehead. The other Onmyojis in the room had probably sensed the dangerous aura, and came out of the room. There were more than 30 people standing behind the Grand Onmyoji, but no matter how many people there were, it was useless. They didn't give the Grand Onmyoji any sense of security. Qin Ziyuan felt that the atmosphere was strange. Why were the Yin-Yang masters in the shrine so afraid of this person? Aren't you afraid of causing a dispute between the two nations? Dispute. The air around him surged even more violently, and his voice rang out like a bell. If Re Nation didn't exist in this world, would there still be a dispute? Boom. Fierce air currents surged out from behind him, and the surrounding mountain houses couldn't withstand the pressure and collapsed. Jiang Xiu walked over, and the wind and clouds laughed wildly. Thunder and lightning flashed in the sky, and it was as if a demon god had descended. Oh my god! Qin Ziyuan was dumbfounded. What was this? Bang! Jiang Xiu raised his saber and slashed down. The saber light shot out in a flash, and suddenly grew to more than 10 meters. It directly slashed down, and the 2-meter-tall wooden house appeared incomparably small under this saber light. Under the saber light, the Grand Onmyoji flew to the side in fear. Before the Onmyoji behind him saw the saber light land, they already felt the saber chi like a gust of wind. They couldn't open their eyes, and their bodies exploded on the spot. They didn't have the slightest ability to resist. Oh my god! Qin Ziyuan, Xiao Xuetong, and the others were dumbfounded. They were really dumbfounded. This person could actually unleash such a terrifying sword light, and with one strike he actually slaughtered all the Yin-Yang masters of the Juzhou Shrine. There were more than 30 people present, and their bodies exploded one by one, and the sky was filled with blood. It was so tragic, so tragic. Under this saber light, people were actually so fragile. It was as if they were pinched into pieces. Life was so fragile. You. Qin Ziyuan was so scared that his whole body was trembling. Jiang Xiu, who was in front of him, rushed out with a swoosh. His target was the temple behind it. Roar! At the same time, as Jiang Xiu flew away, he suddenly shouted angrily. A voice that seemed to have come from ancient times resounded in this part of the world. It was a voice that had never been heard before, causing the entire sky to tremble. The voice rumbled through the sky. A rising sun rose from the east of the mountain. The sunlight was dazzling, and it made the bright world even brighter. Countless rays of light scattered on the ground. Chapter 426. Another sun. The sun at the foot of the mountain rose very quickly, like the fast forward in a movie. In the blink of an eye, it had already risen to the sky. The fierce sunlight illuminated the horizon like the dawn breaking. How is this possible? This time, even Xiao Xuetong was dumbfounded. She was dumbfounded. Jiang Xiu could still create another sun. The sound had already disappeared into the shrine in the distance. It easily broke through the sound barrier. The super high speed brought about a strong gust of wind, directly sweeping away the two halves of the house. With a whoosh, it was as if a sports car had sped past, and the house was immediately blown away. Jiang Xiu's entire body crashed into the divine hall. Jiuzhou Nunnery, where are you going to run to? Boom, the entire shrine exploded. Fierce flames swept up into the sky in an instant, reaching a height of 50 to 60 meters. The phoenix fire scorched this part of the world. An extremely angry voice said, Jiang Luoxia, how dare you chase me to Re-Nation? Heaven to earth, I will not rest until I die. Jiang Xiu's eyes were filled with a terrifying cold light, and the long sword in his hand slashed out again. Die. In the flames, a dark shadow slowly walked out. The shadow was not tall, but it was wearing wooden clogs and had a sword hanging at its waist. It was exactly the same as when Jiang Xiu first saw Jiuzhou Nunnery. Fire Phoenix Rebirth. Every time I come back from the brink of death, my strength will increase tremendously. Under Jiang Luoxia, you may not be able to defeat me. His voice was abnormally terrifying. It sounded like a roar, but also like a low growl. Whoosh. The sword flashed and pierced through the shadow's body. His whole body shook and he said in pain, It's useless. This is only my flame shadow. It hasn't formed a real body yet. You can't kill me. The great phoenix god rune cannot be killed. As long as I bathe in fire, I can always be reborn. Is that so? With a poochie sound, the man from Jiuzhou Nunnery heard a sound coming from his body. How could a shadow make a sound? When he lowered his head to take a look, he was even more alarmed. There was a hole in the divine shadow, and drop after drop of blood flowed out from the shadow. How is this possible? Jiang Xiu's cold voice sounded. How can a mortal's saber be the same as a god's saber? You don't even know what the Tao of saber is. Open the orifices. Using the divine power to nourish the saber aperture with spiritual qi and divine power every day, it was like a towering tree bearing the saber fruit and giving birth to the saber will. Like the saber aperture, the saber pellet is formed and the saber will is solid. It can cut through everything in the world. Your figure is in the world, why can't I slash it? Jiuzhou Nunnery's body couldn't stop trembling as he looked at the blood flowing out. This was his life essence blood. No, Jiang Luoxia, you can't kill me. I've lost. I admit that I'm no match for you. I'm far from being your match. Please spare my life. Spare your life. Jiang Xiu said. Jiang Luoxia is a man of his word. Since you dared to disobey my warning, you and your Jiuzhou family should be prepared to die. No. Lord Jiang Luoxia, you can't kill me. You can't kill me. Seeing Jiang Xiu's saber slashing down again, Jiuzhou Nunnery's saber cried out in fear. He thought that he was invincible when he was bathing in fire. He thought that he had an immortal body. However, reality told him that there was nothing immortal. He was finally afraid. The god of thunder said that if you kill me, he will kill his way to China. Aren't you afraid of the god of thunder's revenge? Jiang Xiu smiled evilly. A talisman flew out of his hand. The talisman passed through the space and fell on Xiao Xuetong's body. Her entire body was sent flying towards the distance. She was sent flying like a piece of white paper. Go. A fierce ray of sunlight shone down from the sky. Fall. Jiang Xiu soared into the air and soared into the sky. 1,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 100,000 meters, 1,000,000 meters. He kept on dashing upwards, as if wanting to break through the Earth's gravitational pull and break free from the planet's restraints. What is he trying to do? Jiang Xiu soared into the sky. The bright light on his forehead kept flashing, pulling Jiang Xiu up until he was tens of thousands of miles high in the sky. He was in a state of weightlessness. His surroundings were pitch black as if he was in outer space. This was his limit. Li Yuan breaking divine wilderness. His entire body turned upside down in the sky. With his head facing down, he charged toward the earth below. With terrifying speed and extreme gravitational force, Jiang Xiu unleashed all the energy in his body. His entire body turned into a long saber with flames and lightning. It was unknown what the saber was good at. It cut across the universe. No one knew how powerful it was. The void could not withstand its power. The air at the tip of the saber was compressed. Countless streams of flames erupted. Looking from afar, he looked like a shooting star. In the Japanese aerospace department, the water table on the table trembled slightly, and ripples spread out from the surface of the water. The Japanese personnel standing in front of the big screen were stunned. They looked at the big screen and saw a shining long blade, as if it had come from the sky, and the light it emitted seemed to have illuminated the sky. It was incomparably heavy and terrifying. Even the space around it trembled violently. Oh my God! What did I just see? When the video followed the flying saber, they saw a person. A person who looked like a saber emitting a blinding saber light. He was too dazzling. His body was like fine white jade, sparkling and translucent, resplendent and intimidating. Radiance surged. Are we seeing things? Is that a person? Did he come from outer space? That person's posture was very strange. His hands were raised high, and his body was almost in a straight line. With his hands as the blade, his body as the divine saber, his divine will as the saber will, and his body as the saber. He emitted an unparalleled sword chi. An ear-piercing sound seemed to resound in the sky. It's coming down. With indescribable speed and unimaginable power, the saber light seemed to weigh tens of thousands of tons. It was said that when the people who came later returned, they were reminded of the nuclear weapons used in World War II. No, it was a power that was much more powerful than nuclear weapons. When the saber light hit Mount Akixiu, the explosion of white light lit up the entire Tokyo. Mount Akixiu, which was more than 300 meters above sea level, was razed to the ground. The shadow of the culprit, Jujuaneo, was torn apart, and the shrine was destroyed. The power spread out and affected the entire Tokyo. All the high-rise buildings collapsed at that moment. Dust filled the sky. Nothing could be preserved under the saber will. Everything was destroyed, and everyone was cut into nothingness by the saber force. The streets, cars, and pedestrians were all destroyed. The huge city of Tokyo turned into ruins. In the image captured by the satellite, after the light burst, the entire city was covered in light. When the light dissipated, the sky was filled with dust. The dust didn't settle for more than 10 days, and under the dust, the entire city of Tokyo was in ruins. It was a ruin that was buried by time. There was not even a scream. Only the later generations could feel the screams in Tokyo from the video and photos. It became the most tragic black and white world. It was completely unimaginable that it was a saber attack by a human being. The tremor caused by the collapse of the city was said to have caused the Earth to deviate from its original trajectory for 3 minutes. It affected all the surrounding islands and caused a huge tsunami. That day was called a day of disaster by Japan. When the news and video spread, everyone in the world was stunned. They felt an unprecedented deterrence. That was the consequence of offending Jiang Luoxia. When an American reporter saw the video, he was so scared that he fell to the ground. His pants were wet. Everyone looked at the video in dismay. They were all dumbfounded. They were completely stunned. At that moment, their souls were no longer in their bodies. The person was on the left, and the soul was on the right. Not to mention the foreigners, even the Hua people and the senior officials of Hua were all stunned when they saw the video. The big boss slowly stood up from his seat. The big bosses did not even notice that the cigarettes in their hands were burning. All of this could be summed up into one sentence. F***ck was that the price Jujuaneo had to pay when he wanted to test Jiang Xiu's cultivation. How was that a genocide? It was. Chapter 427. Amidst the smoke and dust, Jiang Xiu soared into the sky and looked down. The vast and boundless smoke and dust covered the entire Tokyo. Everything below was destroyed. He said faintly, "Is this the limit?" The power of a superior god was still limited to one city or one place. Only those who had truly transcended the yang spirit and become an earth god had the ability to destroy this planet. The gap between them was huge. He didn't look at the surging vastness below. After the initial explosion, there was still radiation. After his knife Dao, the knife was everywhere, either hidden underground or hidden in stones. In the distance, Xiao Xuetong was still waving her arms. She had been sent flying into the sky by the talisman. She couldn't control herself and waved her arms, afraid that she would fall. She could feel the tremors of the earth in the air. Her screams had been blocked by the tremors and couldn't spread. A bright ray of light shot over, and her body was suddenly supported by someone. She turned her head to look, and what entered her eyes was a perfect side profile that seemed to be carved out of marble, as well as a pair of deep and profound eyes. Xiao Xuetong was so scared that her heart was about to fly out, but it suddenly calmed down. Her slender waist was hugged by him, and they flew towards the distance. She had never thought that one day she would be able to fly in the sky. After the initial fear, Xiao Xueqing was a little excited. The wind whistled in her ears, and she was so fast that she had no friends. Looking down, it was all billowing smoke and dust. She felt like she was flying in a fantasy world. Where are we going? Back to Hua Nation. If Jiang Xiu didn't take her back, Xiao Xuetong would definitely die in Tokyo. Xiao Xuetong said in shock. Are we going to fly back like this? No, we can take a plane if we encounter one. He had rushed all the way here and used all his strength just now. If he flew back, he would be exhausted. There were many planes from Ri Nation along the way, but after losing the direction of the Ri Nation airport, it was very likely that he would have to turn back to Hua Nation. Then he would take a free ride. Then, while they were talking, Jiang Xiu heard the roar of the plane. He suddenly sped up and rushed over. With a move of his body, he turned into a cloud of smoke and floated into the plane with Xiao Xueqing. The inside of the plane was already in a mess, because the signal of Tokyo Airport had disappeared from the plane's radar. The plane's position in the sky was completely dependent on the radar. Moreover, the airport had just activated the free house. Now that they could not find the direction, the captain immediately informed the passengers that they needed to return to the nearest airport from the sea. Fortunately, Xiao Xueqing was fully armed. In addition, the plane was a little chaotic, so no one noticed the arrival of two uninvited guests. The plane was not full, so the two of them found a seat at the back and sat down. The plane landed at Treasure Island Airport. At this time, the countries that knew about this matter were in chaos, especially those foreign ministries and big reporters who tried to pressure Hua Nation to ban Jiang Luoxia from entering Ri Nation. They all dared not make a sound. When they thought of Jiang Xiu's ferocity and valiance, they felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Whoever dared to provoke him would be killed by him. The attack of nuclear weapons and the corresponding radar survey could be used for effective nuclear defense. However, when he slashed with his saber, it was not impossible to resist. In an instant, one would become a soul under his saber. As for the divine discoverers and martial artists, they were shocked by Jiang Xiu's heaven-defying cultivation. Is this the power of a superior god? It's terrifying. Many people knew that Jiang Luoxia was a strong man, but they didn't know how strong he was. After this slash, they completely understood and felt that this god, Jiang Luoxia, was in existence hundreds or thousands of times more terrifying than nuclear weapons. In the Palace of America, the authorities were furious. Hua Nation ignored their opinions and openly destroyed Tokyo. They didn't take America seriously at all. We must let Hua Nation receive the punishment they deserve. The members of the parliament were all filled with righteous indignation. Jiang Luoxia is a devil. How many people has he killed? A white-bearded American parliament member said with difficulty with tears in his eyes. Many. He didn't dare to say the number. How many people had died in Tokyo? However, they seemed to have forgotten that they had also used nuclear weapons against Ri Nation. Even now, the people of Ri Nation were still suffering from the huge aftereffects of nuclear radiation. We must unite the members of the council and impose severe sanctions on Hua Nation. They must be responsible for what they have done. One of them raised his hand. I agree. I agree too. Everyone present was shocked and furious. The threat of the East had finally come true. They must unite with the other powerful countries to completely eliminate this threat. The empire on which the sun never sets is the key. Jiang Luoxia is the key. Of course, at the top of a skyscraper in America, a tall man stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling window. It was late at night. As far as the eye could see, the city of America was brightly lit. He had blonde hair and silver eyes. He was as handsome as an ancient Greek god. He held a thick cigar in his hand. Is he also a superior god? On the big screen behind him was a satellite image of the power of the blade. Everything in Tokyo was razed to the ground. It was a shocking blade. This was definitely not something an intermediate god could do. Even a superior god might not be able to do it. Strong. The expression in Thor's eyes was indiscernible, but it could be felt that he was deep in thought. He knew that he was the first person to become a superior god. In the third layer of heaven in that strange place, he saw a superior god killed by him. He had broken through the limits of the superior god. He didn't expect that the person who benefited from it would be the person in the East. He felt a sense of crisis. What's more, Jiang Luoxia had given him such a big show of strength. He had no reason to be a coward. As the largest country in America, their people had inexplicable arrogance in their bones. The divine priest said that there was only one earth god in this world. In other words, the first person to break through the limits of the sun god and become an earth god would be the strongest god on earth and the true ruler of this world. He had always been confident that he could cultivate the law of heavenly thunder faster than anyone else. However, Jiang Xiu's strong emergence made him worried. Judging from the power of Jiang Xiu's blade, this was not something an ordinary superior god could do. Jiang Xiu had become his biggest opponent and threat. The earth god can only be me. He took a puff of his cigar and said, "Prepare a plane for me. I want to go to Hua." "Sir, you really want to go, but..." A woman behind him had been shocked by what had happened in the video. Although Thunder God was invincible in her heart, Jiang Luoxia was so strong that she was a little shaken. "You think I'll lose?" "Of course not, but there's no need to risk your life over something that doesn't matter. Moreover, it's for the benefit of the Far East. That place is very far away from us. It takes a day to fly there. There's no need to become a victim of politics." Thunder God shook his head gently and said, "Politics? It's not just politics. It used to be, but now the times have changed. The rules of the game have also changed. Politics can't be played. The rules have to be broken and re-established. The world in the future will be ruled by the divine priest." The woman behind him said, "You really want to go to Hua?" "I have to go. Destroying the whole of Tokyo might seem scary, but in fact, it's nothing. A real battle between the strong doesn't depend on whose moves have a larger killing range, but on who can kill the opponent and survive." The lady nodded. The Empire of the Sun Never Sets has responded to the call of the Imperial Court, and Silverwing is likely to express his stance as well. After what the Cathayan Empire has done, they will become the public enemy of the world. You are not alone in this war. Thunder God took a deep puff of his cigar and said, "Of course." All of a sudden, the entire world's media was broadcasting the news of what had happened in Tokyo. It caused the entire world to panic and anger. Under the lead of the United States, they issued a strict accusation against China, saying that they were the executioners who started the war. Many people in their own countries took to the streets to express their protest. At the same time, various countries sent envoys to Hua to denounce them. There was no lack of top experts like Thunder God among them. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.